Chapter 923, Life or Death. Chapter 923, Life or Death. Creation Level Tao. The experts present expressed their admiration, but they were not surprised. They had recognized it too. An eternal realm who wanted to be a Tao master had to develop his own Tao. And the Tao that was cultivated had various levels. In the eternal world, the Tao that was cultivated had 3 levels: general level, universe level, and creation level. A higher the Tao level would result in greater strength after breaking through Tao master. Like Bodhidan, it helped the eternal realm to cultivate his own Tao in a very short time. The basic Tao cultivated was general level. The creation level Tao was more than 10 times stronger than general level Tao. Xia Meng had cultivated creation level Tao, but it was not perfect. No wonder he is the first genius in the eternal world. He had the courage to develop creation level Tao as an eternal realm. How bold and resolute. If he had cultivated general level or universe level Tao, he would have taken a long time to become a Tao master. What an exceptional genius! Many experts sang his praises. Xia Yu from Xia clan was filled with pride as he heard the others' acclamations. In the drill ground, Li Tianqiu changed into a huge deep sea within which many figures appeared. The figures struck Xia Meng with killing moves. These included the cold and domineering saber technique and a huge black mountain striking towards Xia Meng. Xia Meng stood in the middle of Black Sea and dealt with the attacks calmly and effortlessly. That's it. Xia Meng's lips curled and pressed his hand outwards. The force from this move rushed toward the huge Black Sea in front of him and cracked the void before him. This horrible power continued to pass to the Black Sea. The impact set off huge waves in the Black Sea. At the same time, the Black Sea began to shrink at an alarming rate. After a moment, the Black Sea gathered together and the figure of Li Tianqiu appeared. Li Tianqiu's face was pale. A trace of blood hung in the corner of his mouth and his aura was weak. No wonder you are the first eternal realm in the eternal world, Xia Meng. I thought we would have a close fight, even if I could not defeat you with my ability. It never occurred to me that I can't even make you show your full strength. Now I am utterly convinced that I have lost this fight. Li Tianqiu said with a low voice. You did well. Xia Meng made a small obeisance. People in the drill ground were all inwardly amazed at the result of the fight and Li Tianqiu's words. Li Tianqiu is very powerful, but he still lost the fight. Xia Meng didn't even use all his strength. The result should be acceptable to Li Tianqiu. After all, his opponent is Xia Meng. Xia Meng is so strong that no one in the eternal realms can defeat him. Chatter broke out among the audience along the perimeter of the drill ground. Li Tianqiu withdrew. Having witnessed Xia Meng's prowess, the geniuses who had been hesitant about challenging Xia Meng looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They were now certain that they had no way of challenging him. They would be easily defeated by Xia Meng, so there was no point in embarrassing themselves by challenging him. Xia Meng's grin widened and was filled with menace as he glared at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. Xia Meng's resounding voice reverberated through the drill ground. 200 years ago, outside the Circus Island, you killed my brother Xia Yan. Today, at this selection ceremony, would you dare to have a fight with his brother? Life or death? Xia Meng's voice had become extremely cold at the last few words. The drill ground was in uproar. Challenge was from Xia Meng to Jian Wushuang, instead of Jian Wushuang challenging Xia Meng. Haha, it's getting more interesting. Does Jian Wushuang dare accept the challenge? Accept the challenge? He is stupid if he accepts. This is a strength competition. It's not like the first round of wedding gifts competition. Besides, Xia Meng has declared a life or death duel. Even if Xia Meng kills Jian Wushuang in the fight, he will receive no punishment. How cruel Xia Meng is! Voices filled with horror echoed through the drill ground. The audience waited in anticipation. They wanted to know if Jian Wushuang, who had violently opposed Xia Meng from the very beginning, won the first wedding gifts competition and crushed Xia Meng thoroughly, dared to accept to Xia Meng's challenge, a life or death duel. The top experts in the stand wore interested expressions. Elder Xia Yu, this selection ceremony is held by Emperor Ling. I'm afraid it's not good to have a killing happen here? A master from a big clan besides Xia Yu exclaimed. Jian Wushuang killed second master of Xia clan. How can this be so simple? I have said that no one can protect him today. As for selection ceremony, we, Xia clan of course, won't go against Emperor Ling. If Jian Wushuang has no courage, he can just refuse the challenge. Xia clan will find another chance after the selection ceremony to kill him. Xia Yu added coldly. Xueling Tian, who was quietly sitting opposite Xia Yu, smiled slightly when he heard Xia Yu's words. Challenge my little junior brother? And a life-or-death duel? Xia Meng is really good at digging his own grave. Xueling Tian laughed coldly and said nothing. Idiot, Xia Meng is really an idiot. In the same stand, Wang Yuan, who was sitting beside Alchemy Master, laughed out with no mercy. Others say he is the first eternal realm in the eternal world and he really believes it. He has just never met our third brother. This Xia Meng is looking for his own death. Yang Zixuan nodded as he stood beside him with his arms crossed over his chest. With all eyes on him, Jian Wushuang stepped forward. He lifted his sharp eyes and stared at Xia Meng. He spoke with an icy voice. Its effect was akin to that of a furious thunderblast. You want to fight? So be it. Between you and me, it's life or death. Chapter 924 Jian Wushuang against Xia Meng. Chapter 924 Jian Wushuang against Xia Meng. Jian Wushuang's towering size burned with wrath following his thunderous roar. He joined the fight. He joined the fight. This is a battle of certain doom. How is it possible that he agrees to join the fight? What courage! Is that folly, or does he indeed wield strength enough to defeat his opponent? Cries and yelling drowned over the incessant chatters rising from the spectators' stand of the arena. Seeing that Jian Wushuang appeared to accept his challenge, Xia Meng smiled maliciously. He flicked his wrist. A blood-red glove appeared out of nowhere, worn over his hand. The glove exuded an aura of intense bloodthirstiness and malice, a clear sign that it was a strong and potent emperor weapon. This appearance of the glove itself roused the fear of everyone present. Many of the spectators present noted that Xia Meng had not used his glove when he defeated Li Tianqiu. It seems that Xia Meng is thirsty for blood. The spectators braced themselves for a gruesome and terrible fight. Some of them even began to fear for Jian Wushuang. Xia Meng was the greatest warrior of the eternal realm in the lands of the eternal world. Even the invincible Li Tianqiu was defeated by him without any apparent effort. It was widely believed that no other warrior of the same realm would be equal to Xia Meng. Xia Meng clenched tightly his gloved fists and instantly, the fabric of space of the air around it began to crack and tear. With a stare filled with hate and malice, Xia Meng looked at Jian Wushuang. I will let you realize, Jian Wushuang, the differences between you and me. Let the fight begin. Jian Wushuang voiced rumbled as he replied coldly, his arms crossed at his front. Xia Meng giggled wickedly and disappeared into thin air even before his laughter ended, appearing behind Jian Wushuang in the blink of an eye. Such a speed! The audience all gasped with amazement. Such a speed indeed, even Li Tianqiu himself could hardly hide his bewilderment. Xia Meng had not displayed the full extent of his quickness in his battle against Li Tianqiu. What he had now shown was the agility and pace which none of the eternal realm could rival. Whoosh! A huge wave of air swept across the arena into the spectators' stands. Xia Meng appeared before Jian Wushuang, his cold and deathly eyes gleaming hungrily. Without allowing his opponent any chance to react, he struck at where Jian Wushuang stood immediately with his gloved fist. The earth-shattering stroke. Xia Meng bellowed loudly. His fist slammed forth with terrifying destructiveness that even the air trembled. The fabric of space crumbled before the tremendous force of his stroke. The aura of his blow passed through the distortion caused to the rupture in the continuum of space, growing rapidly into the size of a huge mountain, a blood-red mountain of death. The huge blood-red mound sped directly at Jian Wushuang, threatening to slam into him with a force sufficient to decimate all lives. The overwhelming power of the aura from Xia Mang's stroke tore through the air, ripping the surrounding space into shreds as it began to crackle and snap. The spectators at the stands all beheld the spectacle fearfully with their breaths held, watching blankly at what was to come. To them of the common masses, this should not even be possible with one of the eternal realm. Does Xia Mang intend to kill Jian Wushuang in one stroke? One stroke. It may be possible with so powerful and terrible a stroke. The crowd now began to mutter and whisper anxiously. But Jian Wushuang was still looking calm and collected, clearly unfazed by the tide of death rolling towards him. He could feel the pressure crashing into him face first from the lumbering aura in the form of a blood-red mound rushing towards him. It was a strength almost impossible and yet immensely powerful for one of the eternal realm. But this was hardly anything in the eyes of Jian Wushuang. With everyone staring at him, Jian Wushuang moved. He lowered himself into a horse stance and channeled all the might he could muster into his right fist. This startled everyone who was watching him. He's not drawing his sword? He carries a long sword. He should most likely be a cultivator of swordsmanship. But why is he not drawing his sword to defend himself? What is he doing? Is he thinking of fighting against Xia Mang with only his fists? Is he mad? Or is he giving up, knowing that his end is inevitable? Clearly Xia Mang has given his all by using his magical weapon. He even used his most powerful secret technique. And yet, Jian Wushuang chose to fight against him barehanded? This is courting death. He is mad. The bystanders around Jian Wushuang all believed that he was either driven mad or he had committed a serious blunder. But in truth, Jian Wushuang was as tranquil as a still lake. A mere warrior of the eternal realm does not require me to draw my sword. Jian Wushuang screamed within himself with rage. He clenched his fists tightly, concentrating his powers and readied himself to retaliate. In his fist, Jian Wushuang had accumulated the huge and terrifying powers produced by his methods of inverse cultivation that allowed him greater power than that of his current level, which were increased by 72-fold with the use of the 24th level of the Star River secret skill. The methods of inverse cultivation alone had bestowed upon Jian Wushuang's strength and power far beyond that of the eternal realm, yet, he had also used the Star River secret skill to further enhance its yield by 72-fold. 72-fold. The powers he wielded were truly unfathomable. I have something I have been waiting to tell you, Xia Mang. Jian Wushuang wore a solemn expression as he looked at his opponent through the distorted anomaly between them. Standing behind the huge blood-red mound of auric energies, Xia Mang was indeed surprised by Jian Wushuang's sudden remark. You have always been widely acclaimed as the strongest warrior of the eternal realm in the domain of the eternal world. But to me, you are nothing but a mere mockery of your pitiful self. Worthless and puny. Jian Wushuang's boomed loudly across the arena. At the same time, he punched with his fists forward, unleashing the astounding force that he had held in his fist. Bang! He drove his fist forward, creating a huge spiraling corkscrew of raging winds that immediately dispelled everything in its path. With only sheer might, Jian Wushuang had shown that he required no secret techniques or any methods to defeat his foe. It was a punch that fully demonstrated his power, which was already close to that of a Dao master. With no need of drawing his sword or the use of any secret techniques, Jian Wushuang had shown to the world that he possessed the strength of a Dao master. And his single blow had fully illustrated how easily he could defeat his foe. Down you go! Jian Wushuang roared. Rumble! The gigantic blood-red mound of auric energies shook and began to crumble, disintegrating instantly once it hit Jian Wushuang's fist. But his stroke was far from ending. The auric blow from his punch, after reducing the huge blood-red mound into nothingness, shot straight at Xia Mang and blasted directly into his outstretched palm, which was wearing the blood-red glove. Bang! Then a loud crack like a smashing sledgehammer reached their ears of everyone around immediately, followed by the subtle, terrifying sounds of cracking bones. How is it possible? Xia Mang's eyes widened with shock and disbelief as he looked at his right hand. His hand was completely mangled. The bones of his hand to his arm have all been utterly crushed by the shock of the blast, which did not stop at that. Instead, the impact was transmitted to all parts of his body. Chapter 925, Double. Chapter 925, Double. Erg. A huge mouthful of blood gushed from Xia Mang's mouth, escaping like a pouring dam. Like a kite with a broken string, he staggered uncontrollably for a moment and collapsed to the ground. The greatest eternal realm warrior of the eternal world. Jian Wushuang smirked faintly as he slowly withdrew his fist. But his words were hardly a lie. With the power Jian Wushuang now wielded, the title of the greatest warrior of the eternal realm was nothing but a paltry sideshow to him. Even Zidong, whom he had encountered during his second test at the Star Island, was much stronger than Xia Meng. With the power of the divine realm I wield, I could have pummeled Zidong into heaps of filth during the third test of the Black Tower back then. Now that I have reached the eternal realm level, it is hardly surprising that my power has increased many folds. Jian Wushuang brooded to himself. The cacophonic dissonance of cries and screams in the arena instantly fell into a deadly silence. The tens of thousands of spectators were all dazed, their eyes wide with disbelief and their jaws dropped and speechless. Even the greatest experts who have been watching from the void were awestruck into a bewildered taciturnity. One stroke. Indeed, it was all he took. But it was not Xia Meng who annihilated Jian Wushuang. Instead, it was Jian Wushuang who had so easily crippled Xia Meng. Xia Meng, lost? A voice broke the eerie silence across the arena. It was a voice which escaped from an unknown mouth. In the next moment, the entire arena erupted into roars and jumped to its feet. Impossible! Am I dreaming? A warrior of the eternal realm defeated Xia Meng. And he did that with a single stroke. Is he really only at the eternal realm level and not a Dao master? But how is it possible that a warrior of the eternal realm could defeat Xia Meng with only one blow? This is inconceivable. None could easily believe what they were now seeing. The notion of Xia Meng being so carelessly defeated was only too unthinkable to everyone around. The uproar was very much greater, even much greater than the moment when Jian Wushuang had produced the magic weapon pavilion. After all, his opponent was none other than the greatest warrior of the eternal realm, the indomitable Xia Meng. The crowd witnessing the unbelievable spectacle would hardly be so terrified if Jian Wushuang had defeated Xia Meng in a close fight. But the fact that Xia Meng was utterly incapacitated with only a single blow had sent the crowd into delirious fervors of insanity. Who else but Dao masters could so easily defeat Xia Meng with only one stroke in the vast domain of the eternal world? Step 7. High above atop the platform, the Lord of Circe's Island was the first to rise to his feet. His eyes gleamed brightly as his gaze was transfixed upon Jian Wushuang. Indeed, only a prodigy of immeasurable talent who had reached the fabled Step 7 could possess the strength of a Dao master despite being only an eternal realm warrior. Jian Wushuang is clearly such a prodigy. The legendary Step 7. It was said that only one had reached Step 7 many long years ago. Who would have expected that we would witness the emergence of another equally talented prodigy? This is unthinkable. An eternal realm warrior who possesses the power of a Dao master? Even the greatest warriors in the domain could hardly refrain from being surprised and amazed as they surveyed Jian Wushuang. The strength and talents that Jian Wushuang had displayed had utterly exceeded their imaginations. Your junior brother is remarkable indeed, Blood Saber. I wager the temple master would be pleased to have one of such talents if he is here. The elder with flowing white hair said. He was the other master of the Void Temple. That may be so. This junior brother of mine commands greater talents and potential that dwarfs even mine. Shueling Tian smiled with pride. He immediately turned towards Xia Yu, who was seated right opposite of him, and sneered. Do you have anything else to say, Xia Yu? The battle is far from over. What are you being cheerful about? Xia Yu retorted coldly. Shui Lingtian's eyebrows twitched suspiciously. Everyone above the stands turned immediately to Xia Yu, watching him dubiously. It was clear that Jian Wushuang had reached step 7, the level of strength that Xia Meng could never hope to defeat. But why was Xia Yu not admitting being defeated when Xia Meng was already in such dire state? Was he hoping that the master Mubai of the Xia clan would die in battle here and now? In the hands of Jian Wushuang. Ha ha! As if on a cue, the answer revealed itself to the entire arena instantly. Xia Meng, who was sprawled on the ground, drenched in the blood and viscera of his mangled and gnarled arm, began to scream and laugh maniacally. Jian Wushuang! Jian Wushuang! Xia Meng howled continuously, like a deranged and wounded beast. His voice rang through the entire arena, filled with hate and malice. Jian Wushuang looked intently at Xia Meng, his expression grim and sullen. With a face as pale as death, Xia Meng's eyes flared with rage and contempt. An icy voice reverberated from his throat, echoing in a crisp and clear tone across the arena. I have not expected that you wield such power, Jian Wushuang. Surely you have reached the legendary Step 7, unless I am very much mistaken? Haha, great. You are powerful indeed. You are the second to have reached the fabled Step 7 in the entire history of the eternal world. Xia Meng continued yelling deliriously. Jian Wushuang frowned with a foreboding dread, not knowing what else was hidden in his opponent's sleeves. Everyone in the arena could only watch in silence and doubt. Why is Xia Yu not admitting being defeated? What does he intend to do? Haha. His insane voice turned sharp and steely suddenly. Do you honestly believe that this is enough to defeat me, Jian Wushuang? Haha. How naive. What revolting arrogance. Just wait till you see this. Xia Meng continued, breaking into another fit of maniacal hysteria. No one could understand what he was trying to say. Even Jian Wushuang himself was puzzled, but he could not shake off a strange feeling of premonition. Just then, poof! A figure shot from the sky, smashing into the grounds with the suddenness, speed, and intensity of a comet falling from the sky, creating a huge crater in the middle of the dueling grounds. Slowly, the dust began to subside, revealing the identity of the figure. But everyone, including the many prominent warriors of the land who were seated upon the stands, instantly jumped with shock. The person was completely the same with Xia Meng. He was a complete double, bearing the same appearance and poise. There was only one difference between them both. The newcomer wielded an aura many times greater than the Xia Meng that Jian Wushuang had defeated, a superior aura that was at another complete level. You have done well, Jian Wushuang. Despite being at the Eternal Realm level, you have managed to defeat my doppelganger. The frosty voice came from the Xia Meng who had just appeared. With a blink of an eye, the entire arena burst into another frenzy of panic and madness. A double. It was a doppelganger. It was merely a double that Jian Wushuang defeated. But his double could defeat Li Tianqiu with ease. His true power would surely be invincible. The gazes and stares of the spectators in the arena froze instantly upon the true Xia Meng. All of them shared an uneasy shudder. For it was clear that Xia Meng's aura was many times greater than that of his doppelganger. An aura which was clearly of the level of Tao Master. Chapter 926, The Battle of the Tao Masters. Chapter 926, The Battle of the Tao Masters. Tao Master. Xia Meng is now a Tao Master. How long has it been since he started cultivating? Surprised, everyone on the drill ground began discussing Xia Meng. The top experts in the audience wore very colorful expressions after detecting Xia Meng's aura. How could he be a Tao Master? I heard that he's only been cultivating for thousands of years, but he's become a Tao Master in such a short time. I think he's the youngest Tao Master in the history of the eternal world. His doppelganger had deceived us all by only revealing part of his Tao earlier. Now that he has become a Taoist, he must have opened up a complete Tao at the creation level. Even if he's new to the rank, he's probably at the top of rank 1 with a Dao at the creation level. The experts looked at Xia Meng with respect. Xia Meng had previously shown great potential, but to them, he had been just an insignificant youngster. However, Xia Meng was now a Dao master who had opened up a Dao at the creation level. This was enough for the experts to regard him as their equal. There were 3 ranks for a Dao master. Xia Meng had demonstrated the battle strength of someone at the top of rank 1. Elder Xia Yu, you have a great expert in your clan, the expert said. He has become a Dao master at such a young age with a Dao at the creation level. He'll go on to achieve even greater things in the future. Xia Yu wore a smug look as the experts in the audience sang praises about Xia Meng. The old dog. No wonder he's so confident in this battle. It turned out that it was Xia Meng's doppelganger earlier, while the real thing has long become a Dao master. Shui Ling Tian clenched his hands, his face turning gloomy. Xia Meng stood in the center of the drill ground. He had recalled his doppelganger, and there was powerful aura from his original body. He looked over at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was now reassessing Xia Meng as an opponent. He would have nothing to fear if Xia Meng was only in the Eternal Realm, but things were different now that the latter had become a Dao master. After all, there was a huge difference between an Eternal Realm expert and a Dao master. Be careful, Jian Wushuang. Xia Meng has opened up a Dao at the creation level and became a top rank 1 Dao master. Gu Qing's voice rang in Jian Wushuang's mind, warning him. Maybe I shouldn't have looked down on him before. Well, no. This makes things more interesting, Jian Wushuang said, licking his lips as he felt his bloodline power surge. Boom! His bloodline power exploded and his body immediately turned golden. 2 quadrangular stars appeared on his chest. 2-star gold-armored ancient god. However, unlike before, his body did not grow too much. He was only about 2 meters high after making his transformation. It was because Jian Wushuang was able to control the size of his body after turning into the 2-star ancient god. I'd like to see how powerful you are as a Dao master, Jian Wushuang said. Jian Wushuang, the gold-armored ancient god, looked at Xia Meng with a pair of dark golden eyes. The desire to battle rose from his body. You'll find out soon, Xia Meng replied. Following these words, Xia Meng flew high up in the void. Then, he brought his palm, covered in a blood-colored glove, down to the spot where Jian Wushuang was standing in with force. The slam turned into a bloody mountain, skyrocketing dozens of times more powerfully than before. Jian Wushuang was no longer where he was by the time the bloody mountain descended. Boom! The bloody mountain crashed onto the ground, causing the entire drill ground to shake violently. Then, the center of the ground caved in to form a massive, hand-shaped pit. The pit was several miles wide and more than 10 feet deep. Countless gravel was sent flying. Every blade of grass in the area withered. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang appeared next to Xia Meng in a strange and unpredictable manner. The scarlet sword appeared in his hand at the same time, emitting a horrible killing intent. It was his Blood Mountain sword. His sword had become all that more powerful after he entered the Eternal Realm. Jian Wushuang swiped Xia Meng with his sword in a casual manner, and a scarlet thunderbolt burst forth from the tip of the sword, carrying a potent destructive aura. The scarlet thunderbolt was none other than the divine Yin thunder that he had cultivated on the Star Island. Hum! The sword light smashed through the void, destroying everything in its path. Xia Meng sneered and hoisted himself higher up into the void with a slight movement. The sword light swept past his feet. The sword light ended up sweeping the perimeter of the drill ground after missing its target. The countless spectators that stood on the fringe of the drill ground panicked when they saw the sword light charging at them. The general of the Royal Guards, who was in charge of maintaining order in the assembly, intervened just then. The general, a genuine Dao master, rushed toward the edge of the drill ground as quick as lightning. As he raised his right hand and made a fist, a giant demonic ape phantom appeared behind him. He threw a punch, causing an explosion in the air. Crash! The sword light collided with the fist, sending horrible waves and air currents flying in all directions. What? The general of the royal guards was surprised. He was stunned that his punch had merely blocked the sword light, not entirely shattering it. The horrible air currents formed a huge storm that swept over the spectators on the rear. There were more than 100,000 of them who stood close to the battlefield, and they were all hurt by the storm that carried a small amount of sword essence. It took a moment for the storm to be settled. The scene stunned the crowd. The horrible palm attack had destroyed everything within a few miles of its force. The sword light had formed a storm and knocked down more than 100,000 people, and after the general of the royal guards intercepted it, to boot. What kind of absurd strength was this? It's a battle between Dao masters. A sudden uproar swept everyone on the drill ground. Chapter 9:27, You're still a joke as a Dao master. Chapter 9:27, You're still a joke as a Dao master. The experts in the audience did not expect this battle to evolve into such a situation. The original contest between the two groups in the Eternal Realm had now turned into a battle between Dao masters. Emperor Ling, who sat in the heart of the audience, threw a lavender luminous pearl into the air. The pearl cracked and subsequently formed an enormous layer of restriction that enveloped a large area of the drill ground. Only Jian Wushuang and Xia Mang were enveloped in the restriction area. Now you can fight as hard as you can, Emperor Ling said. Jian Wushuang heaved a sigh of relief. He did not want that to hurt the audience again. With Emperor Ling's layer of restriction, he could use his skills without having to worry about the audience. Jian Wushuang, Xia Mang called out in his cold voice. Jian Wushuang looked over at him, and their eyes met. In the next second, they both disappeared. Bang! No one in the audience saw where Jian Wushuang or Xia Mang had gone. Following the loud roar, they saw a huge sword scar in the center of the drill ground. It was almost 10 meters wide. Before the audience could react, another explosion went off in the void and formed a huge black hole. The residual power was swept around like a tornado. Everything happened too swiftly. Jian Wushuang and Xia Mang moved so quickly that the audience in the drill ground could not see what was happening. They could only hear the violent explosions in the void and see the cracks on the ground. Only the experts in the audience got a clear look at the battle, and what they saw amazed them. They saw Xia Mang sending palm strokes flying in the void without an end, creating a formidable force. Sometimes, it resembled the eruption of a volcano, and other times, like the surge of the magnificent sea or the descent of a meteorite that threatened to destroy the world. Xia Mang unleashed his creation-level Dao at its full strength. This was the real battle strength of a top-rank 1 Dao master. However, Xia Mang's strength surprisingly did not seem to work on Jian Wushuang. In fact, Xia Mang had no advantage at all. The top experts in the audience could see that Jian Wushuang was executing his swordsmanship at full strength, too. Each of his movement was unprecedentedly fast. Moreover, his sword contained the destruction aura of the Scarlet Thunderbolt, which boosted the power and speed of his swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang had such amazing swordsmanship. Besides, he was now a gold-armored ancient god who possessed the Star River secret skill and the level 2 divine Yin Thunder. This placed Jian Wushuang in a better situation than Xia Mang. Bang! There was another loud thump. Then a giant portal appeared above the battlefield. This was a black hole formed by the collision of their power. Jian Wushuang and Xia Mang separated again. Xia Mang roared as he glared at Jian Wushuang. Then, his body was soon enveloped in a layer of bloody mist. The bloody mist gathered and condensed behind him, soon forming 5 giant beasts. These 5 beasts were strange and fierce. Not only were they tall, but their arms were thick and strong as well. Xia Mang's eyes had also turned scarlet. That's 5-fingered palm. He has such a secret skill. The top experts in the stand were surprised to see the fierce beasts behind Xia Mang. The 5-fingered palm was a creation of a very powerful top-down master of the eternal world, on par with Emperor Lung and Emperor Shao, a long time ago. It was a secret skill that was ranked in the top 3 of all palm skills. The power of this secret skill could not be underestimated. When Jian Wushuang saw the 5 fierce beasts, he knew that Xia Meng was about to perform his unique skill. He focused his energy on his interspatial ring, sending streaks of flowing lights shooting out of it. The flowing lights were sword shadows. Sword formation, condense. Jian Wushuang used his intention to command the numerous sword shadows to combine at an astonishing speed. Soon, they formed a lavender sword that was 6 meters long. This sword was also formed out of 36 magic weapons. It was the first step to lay down the 9th heaven sword formation. Though Jian Wushuang had been displaying the first step of the 9th heaven sword formation earlier, the swords of the formation were different. The swords he had previously used in the formation were called Shui Tianluo, while the ones he was using now were the 1-meter swords. Each of them was worth 1 billion divine crystals. There were now 36 of these 1-meter sword, one of which was already much more powerful than an ordinary emperor weapon. Its wielder was none other than Jian Wushuang, who was in the eternal realm. Go! The lavender sword turned into a purple flowing light, carrying the divine Yin thunder that rushed out so quickly that it seemed like they had never been in the void. Xia Meng snorted coldly. Behind him, the 5 fierce beasts bellowed. 5-fingered palm. Cloud-covering hand. The killing intent surged in Xia Meng's eyes. He made a heavy slam with his right hand. His palm cut through the void without making any sound. In the next moment, a giant palm print emerged from thin air. Then, as if the palm stroke had broken many layers of the space, there was one black hole after another in the void. They all aimed straight for Jian Wushuang. Just then, numerous lavender flowing lights fell down like meteorites and crushed the center of this giant palm. Kaboom! A loud crashing noise reverberated in the air and a large amount of power began to disperse into the surroundings. The center of the giant palm broke open, leading to its collapse. The lavender flowing lights also rebounded from the crash and flew out toward the rear. Is this all you've got, Xia Meng? Jian Wushuang asked coldly. Xia Meng looked up at him. I'll repeat what I've previously said if this is the extent of your strength. Jian Wushuang's words reverberated through the entire drill ground. You were a joke to me back when you were in the eternal realm. Even now as a Dao master, you're still a joke. Second sword formation, condense. Chapter 928, Number 1 of the Eternal World. Chapter 928, Number 1 of the Eternal World. Buzz, more sword shadows flew out. An additional 36 1-meter swords joined the existing 36 swords. 72 of them formed a new lavender lightsaber in the void. This was the second sword formation of 9th heaven sword formation. Kill! Jian Wushuang's eyes glinted with killing intent as the lavender lightsaber pierced the void. Xia Meng stood in the void with 5 huge fierce beasts standing behind him. He readied himself to make another killing move, but before he could do so, a lavender flowing light cut through the void without hindrance and directly pierced him. It was so fast. The flowing light was too fast. The second sword formation was much faster and more powerful than the first. Xia Meng had merely survived the first sword formation. However, the second sword formation was rumored to travel 10,000 miles in a second. This might be exaggerated, but it demonstrated how terrifyingly fast the second sword formation was. Xia Meng had no time to resist such a high-speed attack. Snap! The jade that Xia Meng had been always wearing shattered and produced a transparent halo that enveloped him entirely. The lavender flowing light hit the halo with great force, piercing it. The resulting strong wind sent a violent shock through Xia Meng's body and he was pushed backward by several steps. Though Xia Meng was in a very pathetic state, he nevertheless survived the flowing light. Xia Meng's face was as pale as a ghost. When he managed to regain his footing, he quickly retreated far into the void. Silence fell over the drill ground. Everyone was horrified to see what was happening. Xia Meng lost. He's really defeated this time. He almost got himself killed. Everyone outside of the restriction layer began fervently discussing the battle. Everyone could see that Xia Meng would not have survived Jian Wushuang's attack had the jade not cast such a strong barrier. I almost died? Xia Meng was similarly stunned and frightened. He had experienced several crises since he began cultivating, but never had he come so close to death. I would have died if not for my ancestor's jade. How is this even possible? He did not know that Jian Wushuang had a special talent. When Jian Wushuang was just a divine realm expert, he already possessed 7th level battle strength equivalent to that of an ordinary Dao master. When he entered the eternal realm, there was an even more unimaginable growth in his strength. A rank 1 Dao master was nothing to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's strength in the everlasting realm was one that defied the natural order. His second 9th heaven sword formation could easily crush a rank 1 Dao master. There was a lot of exclamations coming from the audience. Did Xia Meng really lose? Xia Meng is an authentic Dao master who has opened up a Dao at the creation level. His strength is also at the top of rank 1 level. To think that an eternal realm expert defeated and almost killed a top Dao master. Jian Wushuang is the number 1 of the eternal world. He's also the number 1 genius. Xia Meng is indeed a joke in front of him. The experts in the audience exclaimed with admiration. Everyone acknowledged Jian Wushuang's strength. Only Jian Wushuang deserved the titles number 1 of the eternal world. Xia Meng's totally out of Jian Wushuang's leagues. Xia Yu was upset to hear all the compliments for Jian Wushuang and yelled, "You bastard, how dare you use killing moves?" "So what?" Shui Tian replied coldly, speaking in place of Jian Wushuang. "Xia Meng was the one who challenged my junior brother first. It was also he who suggested the fight for life. We all witnessed it. It's clear who really has the killing intent." The top experts looked over at Xia Yu with a hint of mockery in their eyes. No one was a fool. It was obvious that Xia Meng was the one who wanted to kill Jian Wushuang in the first place. Since it was he who challenged Jian Wushuang's life first, it would be his own fault even if Jian Wushuang had killed him during the fight. Xia Yu blushed, momentarily speechless. Xia Meng, having escaped to the edge of the drill ground, stared at Jian Wushuang in awe. He dared not fight Jian Wushuang anymore. After all, he only had 1 jade. With his jade broken, nothing could save him from another of Jian Wushuang's killing move. He had lost this battle. Jian Wushuang had defeated him so quickly and thoroughly in front of so many people. His confidence in his strength was completely crushed. Now he felt only fear. "Your Highness." Shui Tian stood up from the audience to address Emperor Leng. "This battle is over and it's obvious who the winner is. Your Highness, please announce the name of the Emperor's son-in-law." Everyone turned to Emperor Leng with complicated expressions. Jian Wushuang had prevailed in terms of wedding gifts and strength. He was the rightful winner according to the rules of the selection ceremony. He was rightfully Leng Wushuang's future husband. This ought to be the result of the contests. However, it was hard to say whether Emperor Leng would acknowledge this outcome. After all, everyone knew that the purpose of this selection ceremony was for the marriage alliance with the Xia clan. It was something that Emperor Leng had already promised the clan. This ceremony was just a process. The plan was to have Xia Meng excel in the selection ceremony and become the emperor's son-in-law in the kingdom Tang of the eastern land. That way, Leng Wushuang would be forced to face the reality. It was beyond anyone's expectations that Jian Wushuang would come into play and even thoroughly defeat Xia Meng. This outcome was not within the plans of Emperor Leng and the Xia clan. The experts in the audience were curious about the choice Emperor Leng would make. Would she announce that Jian Wushuang would be the emperor's son-in-law in accordance with the results of the 2 contests of the selection ceremony? Or would she still choose Xia Meng without fearing the ridicule of so many people? The choice was up to her. Everybody waited for her to make her decision. Chapter 929, The Results. Chapter 929, The Result. Emperor Leng, I hope you make the right choice. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang stared at Emperor Leng as he stood on the drill ground. Mother, Leng Wushuang was also looking at Emperor Leng. I hope you can keep your promise. Your Highness, Our agreement is dependent on the marriage alliance between the Xia clan and the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land. The agreement between us is invalid without it. Xia Yu also stared at Emperor Leng as he secretly conveyed his message to her. Silence fell over the drill ground. Everyone waited for Emperor Leng to announce the final result. Who would be the princess husband? Would it be Jian Wushuang or Xia Meng? All eyes were on Emperor Leng, who was frowning as she sat on the throne at the center of the audience. Her expression was grave. To think that Jian Wushuang would be that skillful. Xia Meng is such a good-for-nothing to be defeated by an eternal realm expert. What a headache. She hesitated. Yet, she promptly made her decision. Whoosh! Emperor Leng stood up and cast the audience a cold look. Only one person will be the emperor's son-in-law of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land. That is, Emperor Leng pointed to a direction. Xia Meng of the Xia clan, she said. Her voice echoed all over the drill ground. Everyone, including those on the drill ground and those seated in the audience, heard her. Everyone was surprised at this result. How can it be Xia Meng? What a joke! Does she think we're all blind? Jian Wushuang defeated Xia Meng in the 2 contests of the selection ceremony. Jian Wushuang is the winner and he should be the princess's husband. How could it be Xia Meng? Humph! Emperor Leng is so shameless. If she has decided that Xia Meng would be the princess's husband, why bother holding this selection ceremony? She's deceiving herself. Voices that carried anger and indignation came from all directions. There were tens of millions of audiences around the drill ground and everyone was a clear witness. They knew that Jian Wushuang was the rightful winner of this selection ceremony and could not believe that Xia Meng would be the emperor's son-in-law. The audiences could not calm down as they felt such indignance for Jian Wushuang. They could not be convinced. Many experts on the stand sighed with emotion. To think that Emperor Leng would dare to do this. She'd even sacrifice her reputation and that of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land for this marriage alliance. What's the benefit of her doing this? Is it so important to form the marriage alliance with the Xia clan? The experts were all confused. Some experts even frowned with dissatisfaction. So Emperor Leng has long decided that Xia Meng would be the princess's husband. Had I known this in advance, we wouldn't have gotten involved, Deep Sea Palace Master said angrily. Elder Deadwood also snorted. I heard that Emperor Leng would do anything to achieve her goal. I see that it's true. Both of them came from places beyond the territory of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land and possessed extremely powerful strength. Therefore they dared to speak up without fearing Emperor Leng's subsequent retaliation. Some other experts were also dissatisfied with Emperor Leng's decision but endured it after considering her title and strength. Of course, there was another one who dared to speak out. That person was Xueling Tian. Emperor Leng, do you know what you're doing now? Xueling Tian asked with a sullen face. There was anger in his eyes. I surely know what I'm doing now. It's not your concern. The result of the selection ceremony is up to me and I'm entitled to choose the right person to be my daughter's husband. What does this have to do with you? Emperor Leng's voice was cold. Emperor Leng, Xueling Tian became even angrier but had to hold his temper. After all, he had to respect Emperor Leng's strength and title. Mother, you've broken your promise, Leng Rushuang said in a faint voice. She stood up from her seat and looked at Emperor Leng. Keep quiet. You're not speaking here. Emperor Leng turned around after reprimanding her daughter and said nothing more. Leng Rushuang's disappointment gradually turned into despair. Leng Rushuang had previously harbored expectations about her mother. However, everything had now shattered. The way she looked at Emperor Leng changed. It became colder and more distant. The drill ground turned tumultuous. Shock and terror seized the crowd. Xia Meng looked at Jian Wushuang in triumph and deliberately sent the latter a secret message while laughing. Jian Wushuang, what's the use of winning the contests? So what if you have better wedding gifts and strength? In the end, I'll be the emperor's son-in-law and Leng Rushuang will finally be my woman. As for you, you're just a countryman from a remote world with a little bit of luck. Yet you wish to compete with me? How ridiculous! Who are you to compete with me? Do you see the outcome now? Ha! Aren't you angry and unsatisfied? But what can you do? It's useless. Emperor Ling has long decided that I'll be her son-in-law. You're just a contemptible scoundrel. Just enjoy your moment at the selection ceremony. When it's over, my clan will kill you immediately. That's your ultimate result. Ha! Xia Mang's voice continuously came into Jian Wushuang's ears. There was a hint of arrogance, madness, and triumph in his voice. These were the words from a winner to a loser. They were like silver needles that pierced Jian Wushuang's heart. Jian Wushuang kept his head down. Why? I've presented the best wedding gifts and talent. Why wouldn't she choose me? Jian Wushuang roared in his heart. He clasped his hands so hard that his fingers dug into his flesh and caused it to bleed. He gritted his teeth and trembled. I can't accept this outcome. I definitely can't accept this outcome. I won the selection ceremony, but Emperor Lung chose Xia Mang. Just because Xia Mang is from the Xia clan. Emperor Lung, you're so cruel. Jian Wushuang roared, sending sound waves echoing in the air. He then raised his head as horrible killing intent erupted from his body. Chapter 930, I'd Love To. Chapter 930, I'd Love To. Rumble. Jian Wushuang's killing intent skyrocketed into the sky. The rumbustious drill ground gradually calmed down. The audience, tens of thousands of them, all turned to Jian Wushuang. They were also full of anger. Nobody could endure this unfairness. They were also curious what Jian Wushuang would do next. Jian Wushuang, do you have any doubts about my decision? Emperor Leng asked coldly. She did not regret the decision that she had made. The whole eternal world might despise her for what she had done after today, but she did not care. She cared only for success. The Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land would reach new heights once her plan with the National Master succeeded. When that happened, no one in the entire eternal world would dare talk about her behind her back. Doubt. Jian Wushuang scoffed at Emperor Leng's question. Who dares to question your decision, Your Highness? But the protagonist of this selection ceremony, after all, is not Your Highness, but Leng Wushuang. Emperor Ling did not expect such words from Jiang Wushuang. Jian Wushuang ignored her and looked over at Leng Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, Leng Wushuang looked at him with a complicated expression. Leng Wushuang, Jian Wushuang called her name softly. Do you remember the tune you played for me in the nature residence the day we first met in the ancient world? Leng Wushuang did not answer. That tune is called the Icy Heart Melody. Jian Wushuang spoke slowly. The Icy Heart Melody is supposed to be cold, but my heart melted after hearing it. From that time on, there's a place in my heart for you. I never forgot you even after so many years have passed. In fact, I miss you more and more. Leng Wushuang, forget everything else. In the presence of so many people and so many powerful experts in the eternal world, I want to ask you. Will you marry me? There were tenderness and expectation in his eyes. He waited for Leng Wushuang's answer. The drill ground was silent as everyone awaited Leng Wushuang's answer. Would she agree? Leng Wushuang opened her mouth. Shuanger, Emperor Leng said in a warning tone as she glanced at her daughter. Unfortunately for her, Leng Wushuang had lost all affection for her the moment she announced Xia Mang as the emperor's son-in-law. She ignored her mother and continued speaking. Leng Wushuang stood on the stand, her beautiful eyes landing on Jian Wushuang. There was only Jian Wushuang in her eyes at that moment. She could not help recalling how she had met him for the first time in the ancient world. That day, when Leng Rushue had caused a strong enemy to attack Jian Wushuang, she offered to help him. She was surprised at his stubbornness when he turned her down. Later, Jian Wushuang made a desperate decision to abandon his doppelganger to survive. She appreciated his decisiveness. Jian Wushuang was not strong back then. He was just nobody in the ancient world. But he impressed her. Since then, Leng Wushuang had always been curious about him. Perhaps it was fate. Jian Wushuang possessed a special cultivation method that could neutralize the icy heart poison in her body. After that, they became involved with each other. She would never forget the time when Jian Wushuang helped her transform the icy heart poison in the ancient world. It looked like an ordinary detoxification process, but it was her first time experiencing something like that. She had never been in contact with a man due to her noble status. That was the first time that a man touched her hand and even poured his spiritual power into her body. For the first time, she was in such close contact with a man. His breath and aura were carved deeply into her mind. She had always dreamed about him. Now, he was proposing to her in front of so many people. Leng Rushuang smiled. She was born indifferent and there was almost never a smile on her face. But she was smiling now, unleashing a beauty that drew all eyes to her. Finally, she opened her mouth to speak. Her simple words that carried an unprecedented determination spread around the drill ground. "I'd love to," she said the three words. Emperor Leng's expression instantly turned cold. Xia Yu and Xia Meng became sullen. Jian Wushuang smiled with relief. He was afraid that Leng Rushuang would reject him. If that was the case, he would leave without saying anything. Yet Leng Rushuang agreed. She was willing to marry him. "I have heaven and earth as my witnesses." Jian Wushuang extended his hand to make an oath. His voice was as sonorous as thunder, echoing in the sky. "Leng Rushuang is my woman from today onward. She will only marry me. I, Jian Wushuang, will marry her no matter what happens. Whoever dares to stop me has to die." Jian Wushuang's voice, containing his killing intent and resolution, echoed throughout the place. Everyone on the drill ground could feel his determination. Swoosh! His aura skyrocketed to its peak. His sword essence surged at the same time, causing his blood mountain sword to shake. Everyone was stunned. Jian Wushuang then raised his sword and pointed the tip at Emperor Leng. "Emperor Leng, will you stop me?" Jian Wushuang asked. There was no respect in his tone. There was only coldness. This scene stunned everyone present. "How dare you? You're the first person who dares talk to me like this in so many years. You deserve to die." Emperor Leng was also furious and killing intent flashed dangerously in her eyes. She flew swiftly in his direction. "Oh no!" Xue Lingtian was shocked. Many experts on the stand were also shocked. Emperor, she was going to personally attack Jian Wushuang. Chapter 931, I'll break your arm. Chapter 931, I'll break your arm. Emperor Leng swooped down from the stand with her killing intent fully unleashed. The experts were all shocked to see this. Emperor Leng, the emperor of the kingdom Tang of the eastern land, was going to make the attack herself. Emperor Leng. Jian Wushuang looked at Emperor Leng, who was aiming at him. There was no horror or fear in his eyes, only determination and resolution. He held his sword in hand. Suddenly, a token appeared in his other hand. He then crushed the token. Buzz! The destructive sword essence surged, a force capable of destroying everything in the world. The sword essence formed a barrier with an overwhelming power, blocking Emperor Leng from coming closer to Jian Wushuang. Emperor Leng looked at the source of the sword essence with a frown. The top experts in the stand looked in the same direction too. Everyone could feel this terrifying sword essence. A giant spectral image suddenly appeared behind Jian Wushuang out of the blue. This spectral image held a sword too. The horrible sword essence was from this spectral image. This must be the third level of sword essence left by Sunrise Sword Emperor. It's indeed powerful. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands, feeling the horrible sword essence. This sword essence came from the token that Xian Yi had given him. The token contained 3 levels of sword essence, with each level being stronger than the one before it. Jian Wushuang had used 2 levels of sword essence. This was the third and final one. If the previous 2 levels were just the casual creation of Sunrise Sword Emperor, then the third contained all of his strength. Jian Wushuang also guided the sword essence. Emperor Leng. Jian Wushuang called out, "You don't deserve to be Leng Rushuang's mother. I might not be strong enough to kill you with this sword, but it's enough to break your arm." Jian Wushuang's voice was full of anger. There was killing intent in his eyes. As he moved his mind, the giant spectral image appeared behind him again. He swung his sword in an apparently casual manner. Everything seemed to be quiet and still. Emperor Leng's terror was reflected in her eyes. She felt the terrible destruction aura sweeping at her and she struggled to get away. Chi! The sword light ruthlessly cut through her arm, severing it from her body. Her severed limb flew out. Her blood gushed out in the void. Emperor Leng was shocked. Everyone on the drill ground was equally as shocked as they watched the severed arm falling into the pit in the drill ground. Half of her body was drenched with blood as she stood in the void. Just as Jian Wushuang said, Emperor Leng lost an arm. Emperor Leng, the emperor of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land, had her arm cut off in front of tens of millions of people. It was the work of an Eternal Realm expert to boot. Even if Jian Wushuang had used a special skill, it was still a feat that would shock the entire Eternal world. "Jian Wushuang, I'm going to kill you." Emperor Leng screamed with anger and madness. Her beautiful face contorted into a heinous expression. Her killing intent instantly skyrocketed. Jian Wushuang, an Eternal Realm expert, had cut off her arm in front of so many people. Jian Wushuang had been a nobody to her until now. This was an absolute shame for her. Kill him." The words echoed inside her head. Emperor Leng readied herself to attack again. Humph! Her scoff resounded like a thunderstorm in a clear sky. It also sounded like a drum being beat in everyone's ears. "That's enough, you lowly bitch." Out of nowhere, a giant figure in a gray coat appeared beside Jian Wushuang. This person was very handsome and had delicate and short black hair. There seemed to be lightning flashing in his dark pupils. He stood there with his hands behind him, exuding a superb temperament. His unique air impressed everyone on the drill ground and in the audience. The experts immediately recognized him. "Emperor Shao. It's Emperor Shao. Emperor Shao is one of the 4 emperors. He's here. It's Emperor Shao." The exclamations reverberated in the void. People were still grappling with shock. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. With the swooshing sound of the wind, 10 figures appeared behind Emperor Shao one after another. The men were all dressed in black robes and emanated strong auras. They were obviously supreme experts at the level of Dao Masters. Among them was Di Jing, who was very familiar with Jian Wushuang. Are those men the 10 war gods under Emperor Shao? Yes. The 4 emperors in the peak period of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land had a group of loyal Dao Masters each. Emperor Shao was ranked 2nd then, and it was well known that he had 10 war gods. Each of these war gods was a true Dao Master with incredible strength. Later on, when Emperor Shao broke off relations with Emperor Leng, a war between them broke out. Emperor Shao was defeated and his 10 war gods were either wounded or killed. It's evident now that Emperor Shao has once again collected 10 war gods over the years. Now that Emperor Shao has come here in person and even brought his 10 war gods, things are becoming even more interesting. The top experts talked with emotion. The ordinary warriors were excited. They were shocked to hear Emperor Shao call Emperor Leng a lowly bitch. Who would dare call her that? Then, they recognized the 10 war gods behind Emperor Shao and became enthusiastic. It was Emperor Shao. Emperor Shao, one of the 4 emperors in the peak period of the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land, was as noble as Emperor Leng. He was also a little stronger. Emperor Leng had defeated him many years ago. But he was now back with his 10 war gods. Chapter 932, Emperor Shao and Emperor Leng. Chapter 932, Emperor Shao and Emperor Leng. Emperor Shao, Jian Wushuang greeted, looking at Emperor Shao. "Well done, young man." Emperor Shao looked at him appreciatively. It's unfortunate that Emperor Leng still chose Xia Meng. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang felt dejected. Emperor Shao also turned sullen. Having observed the selection ceremony, he was well aware of what Emperor Leng had done. She'd sacrifice her reputation and even that of the entire country just for the marriage alliance with the Xia clan. How could she be so disgraceful? "How dare you come here, Xiao?" Emperor Leng cried, casting her cold gaze on Emperor Xiao. "Humph! Shuang'er is also my daughter. You can't decide on her marriage alone." Emperor Xiao replied, "You bitch, I've always known you to be a cruel person, but I never thought you'd go so far as not show any concern for our daughter. Since I'm here now, I won't let you make the decision for Shuang'er." "Ha! With your strength alone?" Emperor Leng retorted sarcastically as she stared at Emperor Xiao. "You lost our battle and ran out of the kingdom Tang with your followers. For many years you dared not show your face, yet you dare stop me today? With your 10 war gods?" "Of course not," Emperor Xiao answered coldly. "I wouldn't have come today if I'm not fully prepared." Just then, more than 10 figures dashed out of the void and arrived at the drill ground. There were 13 of them, each emanating strong, steadfast aura that instantly pegged them as Dao Masters. Their leader was a man dressed in purple that gave off a rather feral air. Many people on the stand recognized him at once. "Bai Minghao. Isn't that Bai Minghao of the Bai Ming clan? There are also a few Dao Masters of that clan. The rest are also Dao Masters in the Eternal World. Did Emperor Xiao invite all of them here?" Bai Ming clan was also a top clan in the Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land and was almost as good as the Xia clan. There were also quite a few solitary Dao Masters with fairly good strength. "Bai Ming clan?" Emperor Leng's voice was icy cold. "How audacious of you, Bai Minghao." Bai Minghao sneered but said nothing. "It looks like you're here to avenge yourself," Emperor Leng said coldly while looking over at him. "But this battle formation of yours isn't good enough to defeat me." "Of course, this isn't all that I have to show." Emperor Xiao nodded before looking over at where the audience was seated. There, an elderly person with gray hair and a young-looking face stood up. Everyone was stunned to see who it was. Lord of Sursus Island. Emperor Leng was taken aback too. She did not care about the Bai Ming clan. They were a top clan with several Dao Masters under them, but their Dao Masters were only at rank 1 or rank 2. Bai Minghao was the best of them, but even he was only at the top level of rank 2. Lord of Sursus Island was another story. Being the owner of Sursus Island, he was undoubtedly one of the overlords of the Eternal World. There were 6 Dao Masters under his patronage, and each of them was incredibly powerful. Lord of Sursus Island himself was a formidable opponent. He had stayed in the level of rank 3 Dao Master for many years, and his strength was unfathomable. He ought to be evenly matched with Emperor Leng and Emperor Xiao themselves. Emperor Leng had to be careful when dealing with a person with such strength. She stared at him and asked coolly, "Lord of Sursus Island, are you going to intervene?" "Emperor Leng, both you and Emperor Xiao are my friends and you were once a couple. I'm not supposed to intervene in this matter. However, what you've secretly done lately is against the will of heaven, and therefore I must intervene," Lord of Sursus Island said. His words surprised the people on the drill ground. Had Emperor Leng done something that went against the will of heaven? What exactly did she do? Lord of Sursus Island turned to look at the alchemy master in the audience and asked, "Alchemy master, can you watch over my daughter for me?" "No problem." The alchemy master smiled. "Thank you." Lord of Sursus Island then turned to his daughter, Lin Wan. "Wana, you've been asking me to help Jian Wushuang. Now I'll help him as you wish." "Father," Lin Wan was a little surprised. "Go now." Lord of Sursus Island waved. Lin Wan nodded and went to take a seat next to the alchemy master. Finally, he jumped down from the stand and stood next to Emperor Xiao. "Very well, Lord of Sursus Island." Emperor Leng laughed. She then looked around and addressed the crowd in a cold voice. "Who else? Who else is also here to help Xiao? Come out." "Me too," said a cold voice as another figure jumped off the stand. This person had long bloody hair and wore a bloody robe. He was Jian Wushuang's senior brother, Xue Lingtian. "Senior brother." Jian Wushuang looked at him. Xue Lingtian grinned. "Junior brother, I said I'd definitely help you in the event of mishaps. Master Blood Saber. Emperor Lung's fury was apparent in her cold voice. You're the master of the Void Temple. Are you really going to intervene in this matter? Ah, Emperor Lung, you misunderstood me, said a gentle voice. It belonged to a white-haired elder who had been sitting next to Xue Lingtian the whole time. He was also one of the 18 masters of the Void Temple. The white-haired elder smiled. Emperor Lung, Master Blood Saber, will act in his individual capacity today. His actions today have nothing to do with the Void Temple. In his individual capacity? That's to say, the Void Temple won't be mad at me even if I kill him today? Emperor Lung retorted coldly. Correct. The white-haired elder gave a small nod. Very well. Her voice was as cold as the snow in the coldest winter. I thought this would be just an ordinary selection ceremony, but I didn't think there'd be so many unforeseen events and so many people to help Emperor Xiao. But that's fine too. Since you're all here, that saves me the time to go after you one by one. Today, I'll kill you. Whoever's in Emperor Xiao's camp has to die. Heavenly Guards. Emperor Lung's scream rang through the entire imperial palace. Figures dressed in golden robes rushed out of the imperial palace and went to her at an extraordinary speed. Chapter 933, The War Breaks Out. Chapter 933, The War Breaks Out. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. There were 24 golden figures who had gathered behind Emperor Lung in total. Despite their expressionless faces, their aura was strong and steadfast. They were evidently Dao Masters. They're Emperor Lung's 24 heavenly guards. They're said to be Emperor Lung's most elite force, and they're all genuine Dao Masters. Those on the drill ground exclaimed. Xiaoyu? Emperor Lung turned to Xiaoyu. This is all happening because of our marriage alliance. Does your clan intend to help? Fret not, Your Highness. Since we formed a marriage alliance, we're now a family. Whoever is against you is also against our clan. Naturally, we're on your side, Xiaoyu said with a laugh. Xiaoyu then crushed a token. The crushed token caused a space wave to break out and a wormhole to appear in the void. Then, numerous people filed out of the wormhole. The 9 of them, coupled with Xiaoyu, Elder He, and Xia Mang, meant there were now 12 members of the Xia clan present. They stood together, emanating dangerous auras. The 12 Dao Masters of the Xia clan were all here. Emperor Xiao, it's been a long time. How are you? Asked a booming voice that resembled the growl of a beast. Xia Tao. Emperor Xiao frowned as he stared at the leader of the Xia clan, who was a burly man with brown hair. His name was Xia Tao. He was the master of the Xia clan as well as Xia Mang's father. While he was not as strong as the ancestor of the Xia clan, he was also an overlord of the eternal world. Not even Emperor Xiao would dare underestimate him. Today, Xia Tao had even brought all the other Dao Masters in his clan with him. You're here too, Lord of Circus Island. Looks like you've chosen to side with Emperor Xiao. Xia Tao narrowed his eyes at Lord of Circus Island. Correct. Lord of Circus Island nodded. What a pity. Xia Tao shook his head. I had previously entertained the idea of forming a marriage alliance with you, but it wasn't fulfilled due to some mishaps. Now that we couldn't be a family and you're in Emperor Xiao's camp, I'd have to keep you here forever. Lord of Circus Island laughed. I've lived for too long anyway. I'd be happy to have you help me end it. Enough of the chat. Let's settle our affairs here today, you bitch. Emperor Xiao sneered. Humph. You suffered such a terrible defeat back then, and today, you'll experience the same. Emperor Lung's eyes glinted with a powerful killing intent. Go! Emperor Lung's command prompted everyone in her camp to move, including her 24 heavenly guards and the Dao Masters from the Xia clan. Take care of yourself, young man, Emperor Xiao said, casting a glance at Jian Wushuang. I will. Jian Wushuang nodded solemnly. He was no longer the same youngster that Emperor Xiao knew in the past. He was now qualified to participate in this war today. Kill. Everyone in Emperor Xiao's camp also began moving following his command. This included the 10 war gods with Di Jing at the helm, the Baiming clan, and other Dao masters that Emperor Shao invited, such as Lord of Circus Island and Master Bloodsaber. Jian Wushuang gripped his Blood Mountain sword firmly and felt his aura skyrocket. He swiftly readied himself to attack. The camps of Emperor Shao and Emperor Ling had more than 60 Dao masters in total. They were about to collide. Hurry and retreat. We should retreat now. Everyone on the drill ground panicked when the two camps started to attack each other. Tens of millions of people at the drill ground withdrew with unprecedented shock and madness. They were very clear that the war between so many Dao masters would cause incredible chaos and wanted nothing more than to retreat as far as possible for fear of getting involved. Even a battle between two Dao masters would spell disastrous consequences for anyone unlucky enough to be nearby. Yet, there were more than 60 experts at the level of Dao masters in the camps of Emperor Shao and Emperor. That was such a big amount. Emperor Shao, Emperor Ling, Lord of Circus Island, and Xia Tao reigned supreme among all these experts. Nobody wanted to get involved in such a war. Even the strong experts, including Deep Sea Palace Master and Elder Deadwood, in the audience had retreated to a distant place. None of them wanted to get involved because there was no promise that they would survive it. The experts from both camps finally collided in the void. Boom, 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 boom. There was a terrible explosion in the sky. The war had just begun, but there were already more than a dozen large black holes in the void. The smaller ones were almost 10 meters in diameter, while the bigger ones were more than 30 meters in diameter. Terrible forces were also directed onto the ground. Jian Wushuang and Xia Mang's battle had previously created many pits, but the entire drill ground was immediately reduced to ruins after a detonation. The drill ground continued to collapse despite having already been reduced to ruins. The spiritual powers of different colors formed spiritual storms one after another, sweeping in all directions. The entire battlefield was completely enveloped in an unprecedented storm. Those weaker than a Dao master would be killed if they touched the storm. Jian Wushuang, who lived in defiance of the natural order, was the only exception. The terrifying storm continued to expand at a frantic pace. The entire battlefield was also expanding wildly. The war broke out on the vast drill ground, but it was not large enough to accommodate the many powerful Dao masters. Before long, the battlefield covered more than half of the imperial palace. Bang! Nearly 100 buildings in one corner of the imperial palace fell apart following a loud explosion. They collapsed into smithereens that were swept away by a gust of wind. Swish! The ground in the center of the imperial palace was ruthlessly cleaved open with a flash of blade light, and a huge knife mark was left there. The mark was over 300 meters deep and made for a terrifying sight. Chapter 934, Instant Extermination in a 1 vs 3 Battle. Chapter 934. Instant extermination in a 1 vs 3 battle. It's too terrifying. What inhuman feats? Are they gods? A full-fledged war with more than 60 Dao masters? How many Dao masters can there be in the entire eternal world? Innumerable figures retreated far from the imperial palace to watch the unprecedented war unfolding in the center of the palace. Though they were far away, they could still feel the terrible fluctuations coming from the battlefield. There were unprecedented astonishment and awe in their eyes. Dao Master in the eternal world was tantamount to overlords in other worlds. They all possessed frightening power that was capable of destroying everything. It was rare enough to find two Dao Masters battling in the eternal world, never mind a war with more than 60 of them. This was a war that could frighten heaven and move earth. Meanwhile, over on the battlefield. "Bitch, I'll kill you today," Emperor Shao said coldly, his body filled with unprecedented killing intent. "You're not qualified to do so." Emperor Ling was also filled with killing intent. Bang, 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 bang. There were dozens of impacts between the two in an instant. Suddenly, the impact pushed Emperor Ling backward. "Your strength hasn't improved even after so many years," Emperor Shao sneered. "Damn it." Emperor Ling was sullen. "If Jian Wushuang hasn't cut off my arm, Did you think you'd have an advantage over me? It was indeed unfortunate for Emperor Leng to have her arm cut off by Jian Wushuang. Her ability to self-repair was amazing, and under ordinary circumstances, her recovery would have been almost instantaneous. However, the sword essence from Sunrise Sword Emperor contained the destruction sword principle. It was so powerful that it halted her recovery process. Thus, Emperor Leng's one arm remained missing. She was disadvantaged with only one arm left, making her an easy target for Emperor Shao. In another battle, "Xia Tao, show me how you're going to keep me here forever." Lord of Circe's Island's voice was ethereal as if it came from far away. "Humph, you'll see it right away." Following Xia Tao's snort, a huge axe appeared in his hand. He found himself standing next to Lord of Circe's Island after taking a single step. Since the beginning of the selection ceremony, Jian Wushuang's senior brother, Xue Lingtian, had picked Xia Yu, the great elder of the Xia clan, as his opponent. Xia Yu's strength was not as good as Xia Tao's, but he had also reached the level of rank 3 Dao Master. His strength was similar to Xue Lingtian's. They had been at odds since the fight between Jian Wushuang and Xia Meng. With the outbreak of the war, they immediately targeted each other. Both sides sent out 6 of their best Dao Masters to battle each other. The remaining Dao Masters also found their respective opponents. Jian Wushuang had been eyeing one person since the beginning of the war. It was none other than Xia Meng. Xia Meng had been hurt badly in the contest earlier, but his jade had saved his life. Jian Wushuang didn't believe that he would have another life-saving jade with him. "Go to hell!" The killing intent surged from Jian Wushuang's eyes as he charged at his opponent. Jian Wushuang. Xia Meng was terrified when he saw Jian Wushuang rushing toward him. He had mocked Jian Wushuang when Emperor Leng announced him to be Leng Wushuang's husband, but he knew very well that he was much weaker than Jian Wushuang. He knew he was no match for Jian Wushuang in a one-on-one battle. The latter's sword formation would just kill him outright. Therefore he called another 2 Dao Masters next to him, saying, "Xia Qi, Elder Dong, let's kill Jian Wushuang together." Xia Qi and Elder Dong joined Xia Meng without hesitation and rushed toward Jian Wushuang. 3 Dao Masters? Jian Wushuang's expression shifted ever so slightly. "Don't worry. Xia Meng is the only one out of them who have reached the top of rank 1. The other 2 are just at the medium level of rank 1. You'll be able to fight them." Gu Qing's voice resounded inside him. Being in a lower realm, Jian Wushuang could not see the specific strength of these Dao Masters. But Gu Qing could see it. "They're all rank 1 Dao Masters?" Jian Wushuang felt reassured. "Then let's fight." The Blood Mountain sword appeared in Jian Wushuang's hand following a roar, carrying astonishing power. Next to him, the 9th Heaven Sword formation formed by 36 1-meter swords let out strong power. Jian Wushuang's killing intent surged and, in a flash, he clashed with the 3 Dao Masters. Scram! Jian Wushuang bellowed and the strong power of the Blood Mountain sword skyrocketed. Boosted by the forces of the 24 levels of the secret skills, which was 72 times stronger, he swung his sword. However, before using the sword, Jian Wushuang had also sent out an unearthly energy. That energy was from the mind-controlling secret skill, one of the 3 secret skills of the ancient god clan. The mind-controlling secret skill was used to attack a person's consciousness. After Jian Wushuang reached the eternal realm and his strength skyrocketed, the power of this skill improved too. Furthermore, his consciousness was also much stronger than typical Dao Masters. In addition, the divergent bloodstone had also increased the power of this skill. The attack almost hit the 3 Dao Masters at the same time. They were all impacted to a certain extent. Thus, when Jian Wushuang's sword arrived, the 3 Dao Masters could barely put up a resistance. Bang! 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 The 3 figures were forced backward nearly at the same time, but just as they were retreating. Whoosh! Sharp, harsh wind-breaking sounds and fitful explosion noises filled the void. The 9th Heaven Sword formation transformed into numerous meteors that aimed for Elder Dong at an amazing speed. Elder Dong was subsequently beheaded with his eyes were still wide open as if he could not believe what had just happened. The three of them, three Dao Masters, had teamed up to fight a solo Jian Wushuang. However, Jian Wushuang ended up killed one of them with just one move. Chapter 935. The Seal was broken. Chapter 935. The seal was broken. How is this possible? Xia Meng was stunned. How could Jian Wushuang kill one of them when the three of them had gone up against him together? Does this younger still have tricks up his sleeve? Xia Meng thought in fear. Indeed, Jian Wushuang possessed unusual skills. He was unable to use his mind-controlling secret skill in his battle with Xia Meng earlier, but in this battle against three Dao Masters, he surprisingly unleashed the skill in combination with the Ninth Heaven Sword formation. It was so effective that he instantly killed one of his opponents. This was the first Dao Master that Jian Wushuang killed. It was unusual for an Eternal Realm expert to kill a Dao Master. However, few noticed this as three Dao Masters had died earlier in the battle. Master Mubai, Jian Wushuang is too powerful. We can't beat him, Xia Qi said. I know. Xia Meng was sullen. I've already asked Elder He for help. Elder He? Xia Qi was pleasantly surprised. Though both sides were evenly matched, Emperor Lung's camp outnumbered the other side. Thus, they were able to team up and confront their enemies together. The gloomy and cold Elder He had been fighting together with a heavenly guard against a war god of the other camp not far away. He withdrew from that fight after receiving Xia Meng's request and hastily rushed over to the latter. Elder He, Xia Meng greeted. Elder He stared fixedly at Jian Wushuang without replying to him. Kid, I know that you're the one who killed Second Master, he said. Back then, he had accompanied Xia Yan to go to Circus Island for a marriage proposal. In the end, the proposal failed and Xia Yan was even killed. When he returned to the Xia clan, he was punished for failing to protect his master. Since then, he held a grudge against Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang recognized Elder He too. Be careful. This person ought to be rank 2 Dao Master. Gu Qing's voice resounded inside him. Rank 2 Dao Master? Jian Wushuang's pupils shrunk. That means he has opened up 2 Dao. There were 3 ranks for a Dao Master. 1 rank meant 1 Dao. A rank 1 Dao Master had opened up 1 Dao, a rank 2 Dao Master had opened up 2 Dao, and so on. But his Dao is just at the normal level, and he's at the lower level among rank 2 Dao Masters. You can try fighting him, Gu Qing said. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded, and in next moment, dozens of flowing lights burst out of his interspatial ring. The flowing lights merged and formed the Ninth Heaven Sword formation that hovered in front of him. This was the second sword formation of the Ninth Heaven Sword formation. Kill! Jian Wushuang wielded the lavender lightsaber formed out of 72 1-meter swords and swung it at the void. With a sharp and harsh sound, the lightsaber struck Elder He like a rapidly rotating awl. The crazing rotating alts struck Elder He's head with an incredible power at lightning speed. The attack would have killed an ordinary rank 1 Dao Master before he could react. Elder He was different. Humph! Elder He gave his sleeve a flick and gray mist began gushing out. The mist gathered and soon formed a gray cloud. When the alt crashed into the vast and mysterious gray cloud, it was as if it hit a mass of cotton. It went through the cloud effortlessly. What a joke! With another flick of his sleeve, Elder He sent the Ninth Heaven Sword formation flying back at Jian Wushuang, along with the gray cloud. What kind of skill is this? Jian Wushuang was shocked. His Dao might be weak, but it's very strange. Be careful, Gu Qing said. Do I need you to tell me that? Jian Wushuang retorted. He then threw himself backward at a high speed. However, the gray cloud was even faster and it soon enveloped him completely. He couldn't see anything in the cloud and was beginning to lose his consciousness too. Boom! When he heard a wind-breaking sound next to him, he hastily turned around. However, it was too late for a vigorous palm smashed heavily onto his chest. Pfft! Jian Wushuang coughed up blood as he was thrown out of the cloud at high speed. His face turned deathly pale. Over on the stand, Lung Rushuang witnessed everything happening to him. The war had been going on for quite a while, and more than half of the imperial palace was already in ruins. The experts were also engaged in heated battles, but no matter how mad the situation became, no one tried to attack Ling Rushuang. No one wanted to hurt her and thus kept their distance from her. Therefore, she stood in place as a spectator of the battle since the beginning. Her beautiful face was pale with fright, but the most visible emotion she was expressing was anger. Yes, it was anger. Her anger was ignited when she saw Elder He severely injuring Jian Wushuang. Why? Mother, why? She whispered. Her voice was so low that only she could hear it. The rest were naturally oblivious, as focused on the battle as they were. For all my life, I've never once disobeyed your words or went against your wishes. When Father broke things off with you and subsequently suffered defeat in your hands, I still stayed with you despite knowing it was your fault. So why would you treat me this way? I love Jian Wushuang. I want to marry him. Why would you stop me? Why? Ling Rushuang bellowed, her voice sending tremors through the world. There were unprecedented anger and madness in her eyes. There had been a heavy seal placed on her a long time ago to seal the icy heart poison inside her body. It was also meant to seal something more terrifying and inconceivable inside her. Now, alongside the crazed look in her eyes, the seal was unexpectedly broken. Chapter 936, Primordial Great Sin. Chapter 936, Primordial Great Sin. The fierce battle between the remaining Tao masters of the two camps continued. The battlefield was divided into 3 sections. Emperor Ling against Emperor Xiao, Lord of Sursus Island against Xia Tao, and Xueling Tian against Xia Yu. Emperor Ling was a little weaker than Emperor Xiao, but she was still persevering. Lord of Sursus Island was evenly matched with Xia Tao. The only confrontation where one opponent was clearly superior was the one between Xueling Tian and Xia Yu. How could this be? How could Master Blood Saber be so powerful? Both shocked and horrified, Xia Yu could barely keep fighting on. He appeared to be in a very pathetic state. Xueling Tian's strength was far beyond his expectations. He became a rank 3 expert after opening 3 Dao, and his Dao was fairly strong. Even so, Xueling Tian completely crushed him to the point where he could barely put up a fight. Xueling Tian was also a rank 3 expert, but his Dao was even stronger. Moreover, he possessed an extraordinary saber which was much more powerful than Xia Yu's emperor weapon. Fortunately, Xia Yu had a Dao which was especially used for defense. Otherwise, he would be utterly defeated. I've fought him before, but he wasn't this strong then, Xia Yu thought. Just then, buzz. Out of nowhere, an unimaginably cold aura erupted. The aura seemed to have frozen the entire battlefield, even time and space. The Dao masters in the Imperial Palace halted their movements the moment they detected the aura. Tits. They turned to look at the source of the icy cold aura in surprise. They were startled to see who it was. Emperor Xiao and Emperor Ling, who had been fighting fiercely in the center of the battlefield, also stopped after detecting the aura. Then they realized it came from their daughter. No. Emperor Xiao's expression changed drastically. Mad. She's gone mad. Emperor Ling cried, appearing terrified. She released the seal? Does she want to die? Only both of them knew just what the seal was for. That was why both of them were so shocked. Ling Rushuang looked up, her beautiful eyes filled with endless killing intent. Swoosh. In a flash, she appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. She faced Elder He with her back against Jian Wushuang. You're the one who hurt him. Her voice was as cold as the 9 serenities. Elder He frowned, not knowing the reason for Ling Rushuang's sudden change. However, her cold aura frightened him. Nevertheless, he nodded without hesitation in response to her question. He wouldn't show fear as a rank 2 Dao master. He was ready to follow up with a verbal answer. But before he could open his mouth, Ling Rushuang was already taking action. She appeared in front of Elder He, moving as swiftly and unpredictably as a ghost. She was so fast that it felt as if she was really a specter. Before Elder He could react, She patted his forehead with her beautiful and fair palm. It was a simple, gentle pat. The moment her palm came into contact with his forehead, a terrible chill took over his entire body. The coldness was the result of Lung Rushuang's icy heart poison. Elder He was stupefied as his body started to turn white, first from the forehead, then to the face, then to the torso, and finally the whole body. In the end, he was turned into an ice sculpture. Then, as a random gale of energy swept the area, the ice sculpture shattered into countless pieces before eventually vanishing in the void. In a split of a second, a rank 2 Dao master had disappeared in a puff of smoke. Those who witnessed this became horrified, including the Dao masters on the battlefield. They had watched a rank 2 Dao master turned into an ice sculpture while alive and then broken into pieces. What kind of skill was Lung Rushuang using? Jian Wushuang's eyes were full of amazement. He had seen this skill before. He had seen Lung Rushuang kill with the same skill in the ancient world. But they were now in the eternal world, and the Dao masters here were far more powerful. Elder He was a rank 2 Dao master whom Jian Wushuang couldn't win against even after using his full strength, yet Lung Rushuang was able to kill him with a gentle pat. Great sin. Primordial great sinner. Oh my God. King Gu called out in horror, his voice reverberating in Jian Wushuang's mind. Primordial great sinner? What's that? Jian Wushuang immediately asked. There's no time to explain the details, but basically, your little girlfriend's life is a tragedy. She's destined to suffer endless torture, and the reason should be related to her parents, Gu King said solemnly. She's destined to suffer? Jian Wushuang was startled. Lung Rushuang was expressionless after killing Elder He and merely looked around coldly. Who else wants to hurt him? There was an unfathomable killing intent in her voice. Her cold voice and the surging icy aura around her made every Dao master on the battlefield ill at ease. Xia Meng had already run far away in fear. This is madness, Emperor Ling bellowed, staring straight at her daughter. Shuang, are you crazy? How can you break the seal in your body just for Jian Wushuang? Don't you know what you'll face after doing this? There'll be endless pain and torture. It'll be a life worse than death. Is such a life worth it just for the sake of a man? Chapter 937, National Master. Chapter 937, National Master. Is such a life worth it just for the sake of a man? Emperor Lung's cold voice reverberated in the air, her every word ringing loud and clear in Lung Rushuang's head. Is it worth it? Lung Rushuang muttered. Even so, her lips were curved into a smile. She then looked up at Emperor Lung. The only hint of warmth I've ever felt in my life was when he healed me in the ancient world. You ask me if it's worth it? Of course. Her voice was as cold as ice and carried a never-before-seen determination. Her resolution was firmer than ever, as reflected in her eyes. Whatever happened today, and regardless of what would happen in the future, she would never regret it. You idiot! Emperor Lung continued to reprimand her daughter. Emperor Shao strangely didn't say anything. Jian Wushuang, who stood next to Lung Rushuang, was thoroughly stupefied. Emperor Lung's words were still ringing in his head. Once the seal is released, Lung Rushuang will be endlessly tortured and live a life that is worse than death. Gu King, what the hell is going on? What's going on? The surge of Jian Wushuang's emotions was turbulent and violent. It's a long story, so let's that aside for the time being. Your little girlfriend really loves you, seeing as she'd break her seal for you. If it's possible to do so in the future, you should treat her kindly, said Gu King. Easy for you to say. Jian Wushuang's face darkened. On the battlefield, Emperor Lung looked coolly at her daughter. With a snort, she looked away and her gaze began roaming around. When she saw the situation on the battlefield, she couldn't help furrowing her brows. Emperor Shao had been well prepared for their battle. Not only did he invite the Baiming clan and a large number of solitary experts, Lord of Circes Island and Master Bloodsaber of Void Temple were also present. From the looks of it, his camp wasn't any weaker than hers. She noticed that Master Bloodsaber was thoroughly crushing Xia Yu in their battle. Meanwhile, She was also at a disadvantage against Emperor Xiao because she had yet to recover from Jian Wushuang's attack earlier. To make things worse, Leng Rushuang had released her seal and even used such a strange and frightening skill to kill a rank 2 Dao master of the Xia clan. She had thrown the power equilibrium of the two opposing camps off balance. Her camp was at a disadvantage now. If Master Bloodsaber killed Xia Yu or Leng Rushuang ended up slaughtering everyone, she would be completely defeated. Emperor Leng suddenly looked up as she pondered this. National Master, look at the situation. Aren't you going to make your move? If you don't make your move now, our many years of effort will be in vain. Her cold voice echoed through heaven and earth. The Dao masters on the battlefield as well as the spectating experts outside the imperial palace were stunned. National Master? The mysterious National Master from the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land. Hee. The laughter seemed to contain a kind of magic power. The experts couldn't stop themselves from looking toward the source of the laughter. They watched as a slender figure appear next to Emperor Leng. This person was dressed in an old gray robe and held a strip of cloth in his hand. On the cloth were the words, fortune-telling. He had gray hair and a wizened face. His eyes were so dark that they were unreadable and there seemed to be green flames burning behind his pupils. His aura was so plain that he came off looking like an ordinary soothsayer in the market. However, those who recognized him knew that this ordinary-looking old geezer was terribly powerful. Years ago, there had been a civil war in the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land. Emperor Xiao had severed all ties with Emperor Leng and they waged a massive war against each other. Emperor Xiao was superior to Emperor Leng both in terms of prestige and power in the Tang Kingdom, but he still ended up tasting defeat. There was only a reason for his defeat, the soothsayer. This is the mysterious national master of the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land, the creator of Divine Sea and the Blood Eagle Amor? Jian Wushuang thought as he looked at the soothsayer. He had heard of this national master before. Moreover, he had been quite stunned after learning about the national master skills. Divine Sea could crush experts below the level of Dao masters. On the other hand, the Blood Eagle armor not only possessed strong defensive capabilities, but it could also enhance the user's offensive power. It was unlike anything that Jian Wushuang had ever seen in the eternal world. He was the creator of both skills. Without his help, Emperor Leng wouldn't have defeated Emperor Xiao. You finally showed up. Emperor Xiao's expression turned grim at the sight of the soothsayer. No one was more well-versed with the national master's skills than him, which was why he remained in fear of the latter. The national master was the only one out of the top experts of the eternal world that he was afraid of. I didn't plan on showing up so early. After all, your friend hasn't shown up yet. The soothsayer smiled. Friend? Emperor Leng frowned. She didn't expect Emperor Xiao to still have reinforcements that had yet to appear. As expected of a person who could frighten junior brother Xiao. I thought I hid well, but you still found me, said an ethereal voice that came from outside the imperial palace. The voice had clearly come from a faraway place, but its owner had already appeared next to Emperor Xiao. The gray-haired man was dressed in a white robe. Though he appeared to be an old man, the skin of his face was finer than most youngsters. He looked at the soothsayer and Emperor Leng indifferently as if he was looking into the air. He had an ethereal and incomparably unique temperament. It's you, Emperor Yun. Emperor Leng's pupils shrunk in fright. Everyone else on the battlefield was also stunned. Emperor Yun. There had been 4 emperors in the golden age of the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Land and Emperor Yun was ranked 3rd among them. He had gone missing for years after Emperor Qing's death, but he had now shown himself again. Chapter 938 Stronger? Chapter 938 Stronger. Emperor Yun, even you stand with this Emperor Xiao against me too? Emperor Leng regarded Emperor Yun with anger and surprise flaring in her eyes. We are all fellow disciples of our teacher, junior sister. As your senior brother, I will usually side no one but just order. But you have crossed the line this time. Not even our teacher will rest at ease at the sight of the atrocities you have committed. Emperor Yun replied coldly. The 4 emperors of Tang Empire of the East were all fellow apprentices of the Tang Emperor. Emperor Yun was the oldest amongst the 4, being the eldest senior brother of his younger siblings in arms and tutelage, followed by Emperor Qing and Emperor Shao. Emperor Leng was the 4th amongst them, the youngest junior sister. Then again, Emperor Qing wielded the greatest strength and power among the 4, followed by Emperor Shao by a mere hair's breadth. Emperor Yun and Emperor Leng have always been equal in combat. Our teacher? For many years, the teacher has yet to show himself. None could say if he still lives. But I would hardly flinch even if he is here before us today. All that I have done is for the good of the Tang Empire. Emperor Leng retorted loudly. Insolent fool! Still until now, you have no remorse of what you have done. With a stare turned cold as steel, Emperor Yun declared solemnly, as the most senior of our teacher students, I will exact judgment in his name today and cleanse anew the name of our following. Judgment? We will see who will have the last laugh. Emperor Leng sneered and turned to the soothsayer beside her, saying simply, I will leave everything to you, national master. The soothsayer grinned strangely as he stepped forth slowly. Up in the sky, Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun were floating abreast in the air, watching as the soothsayer stepped forth. Their faces turned hard and intense as the older man approached. Is this the national master which you have so much fear for, junior brother Shao? Emperor Yun asked in a low voice. He is. Emperor Shao replied with a nod before he continued seriously, I have had the upper hand during my last duel with the bloody woman. It was he who had a hand in my loss. Despite fighting with the blasted woman against me, I am sure that he is very much stronger than I am. Moreover, his methods and techniques are strange and unusual. Despite being well prepared this time, that I have even implored to you for help, I am afraid we have only 3/10 of a chance to defeat him. 3/10 of a chance? Emperor Yun uttered incredulously with shock and dismay. Let me see how capable this national master is. With a cold and deathly glare, Emperor Yun leaped into the air before he finished, gliding away with the grace of a floating cloud. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew suddenly in the air, sending a whoosh! Artich a forceful surge of air. Open! Proud and stern, Emperor Yun's voice rang out from the air as he remained at the center of the raging winds around him. Without warning, he cast forth a blow from his palm. The blow from his palm ripped through the continuum of space before him, causing a huge black hole to appear. Spanning more than hundreds of feet wide, the black hole grew vehemently at impossible speeds, drawing in all mass and matter upon itself while it engorged hungrily at everything it could draw. The growing mass of darkness hurled itself at the old soothsayer, threatening to devour him whole. Interesting. The soothsayer gave a sinister giggle as he remained standing, waiting patiently for the black hole to bore down upon him. It had grew to more than 1,000 feet wide as its jaws descended on him. Just then, his hand raised and tapped at the center of the mass of darkness gently with a finger. Simple and yet ordinary was his stroke, yet it held a power mysterious and strange. The humongous cavity of pure darkness which had grown into more than 1,000 feet immediately screeched painfully like a howling animal in agony before it collapsed and disintegrated into nothingness. The magic of the black hole had been undone even before it had unleashed its powers. The collapse of the black hole caused a huge vacuum that brought about turbulent and chaotic winds pouring from all directions. This generated a space rift in the skies overlooking the entire imperial city, laying waste to the once illustrious city, leaving many structures and buildings in the city crushed and crumbled. The horrific display of power by the soothsayer left the fighting Dao masters and warriors, including those watching from the outskirts of the imperial city, awestruck. With such ease, he had undone my magic? Emperor Yun gasped in horror as all color had left his face. Suddenly, everything around them turned completely pitch black. The entire world was shrouded by utter darkness that tolerated not even one glimmer of light. A terrifying reign of literal darkness endured as a strong and unmistakable aura of bloodthirsty malice simmered in the air, sending fear and shivers down the spines of everyone around as if they had stepped through the frightening gates of hell. The stares and glares of everyone around instantly rested upon the origin of the hateful aura, Emperor Shao himself. Emperor Shao scoffed once. Suddenly, his saber swung forth dangerously with the force that he had been channeling. So powerful was the stroke that it could even send tremors across the heavens and earth. The blade shone with a pale, deathly flash as it clove the skies and earth into a half, sending a bright flash across the eerie scrim of darkness that persisted in their surroundings and blinded those who had tried to look. The terrible flash of light tore through the air, the speed of its travel unfathomable and beyond comprehension. Yet, faced with such a terrible stroke, the same assured grin remained upon the gnarly face of the old soothsayer who stood and waited for his adversary's stroke to fall upon him. Whoosh! This shining brilliance from Emperor Zhao's stroke sliced through the figure of the old soothsayer, exiting through his body and continued its way to the huge palace in the city. The flash of light of the aura of Emperor Zhao's blow crashed into the huge and massive palace complex, reducing the countless of sections and adjacent buildings and the palace itself, once the jewel of the imperial city, into nothing but dust and debris. Desolation and devastation was everywhere that even the earth had been flipped over. With only one stroke from his saber, Emperor Shao had brought down the once majestic and imposing palace complex of the Tang Empire, leaving nothing but filth and grime. But the soothsayer, having been hit by the stroke earlier, was hardly injured as his figure reformed. Floating in the air, the old soothsayer continued wearing a sinister grin as he remained unfazed as if the stroke had barely grazed him. How is this possible? Emperor Shao stammered with shock. He had known that the old soothsayer was strong and powerful, but never had he expected such a monstrous difference between their strengths. Instead, the soothsayer had appeared to be even stronger than he was during their previous encounter. Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun, two of the 4 emperors of the Tang Empire of the East. There was an inexplicable and yet distinct twinkle in the soothsayer's eyes as he spoke casually. You have done well to reach such remarkable heights as Tao Masters. You both might have been able to defeat me if you both had joined hands in our previous encounter. But I am afraid things are completely different now. After all, my strength has recovered much after those years. Chapter 939, Critical Help. Chapter 939, Critical Help. His strength has recovered much? A frown creased upon the brows of both Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun as a foreboding dread crept into them. Has his strength reached that level? Emperor Yun asked himself quietly. That level? Emperor Shao asked, startled. By that, Emperor Yun referred to a height which their teacher, the Tang Emperor, had once achieved. Even Emperor Qin, the strongest of the 4 emperors, had nearly reached that very level of powers, so close he was from reaching his goal that his fingers could barely graze the threshold. Still, that was none other than Emperor Qin himself. The two were still leagues and leagues behind. This is bad. Emperor Shao gasped with dismay. Right at the moment, the figure of the soothsayer who stood before them shimmered and disappeared. Swoosh! In the flash of an instant, the soothsayer reappeared behind Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun. Such speed! Overcome by shock, both Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun felt their blood leaving their face. The speed that the old soothsayer had unleashed confirmed their suspicions. He had reached that very level of strength. You have failed before, Emperor Shao. Why do you persist on such a vain quest? The soothsayer's eerie snicker reached into the ears of Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun. Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun turned around immediately. They had barely turned, only to see that the old soothsayer was flailing the sleeve of his robe as he cast forth a terrible force of energy from within its folds. Bang! Bang! Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun both felt something exploding within their bodies instantly, followed by a huge mouthful of blood that rushed up their throats. Vomiting furiously, the pair immediately plummeted from the sky, crashing down into the earth. Boom! A fresh crater had appeared, an addition to the already wretched state of the land ravaged by battle and carnage. There came a sudden groan and another crashing crescendo. The crater had disappeared, replaced by a deep and bottomless abyss. Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun had been struck so badly that they have both been cast deep into the abyss that no signs of life came from the darkness below. This sent a shiver of silence across the entire battlefield. The Tao masters and warriors fighting all paused in their tracks and beheld, with fear and awe, the invincibility of the old soothsayer. Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun are both frightening monstrosities in their own right. Yet, now, right before the eyes of everyone present, they have been pummeled into ignominious defeat like a helpless bug before the overwhelming strength of the old soothsayer. What indomitable strength! Emperor Shao. Jian Wushuang was also equally startled by the spectacle. Good gracious! What came before were merely ordinary Tao masters despite their strengths and powers. Yet this person, he is of an utterly different class. The Gu King's frantic cries resounded over Jian Wushuang's mind. The terrible sight of the undefeatable soothsayer who was afloat in midair became the center of everyone's attention. His throbbing eyes, flashing with a manic glint, turned and bore straight into Jian Wushuang. Ha! Never would I expect that I would encounter one who is learned in the methods of inverse cultivation here in this domain. An eerily ghastly laugh emitted from the throat of the old soothsayer. His eyes flared as he held Jian Wushuang in his gaze. A student of the methods of inverse cultivations. Oh, the irony of fates, you are a rare breed, even in the wide vastness of this domain. If only I have met you sooner, I might even make you my personal disciple. It's a pity that you have chosen the wrong side. And for that, I will have you slay you now, for you leave me no choice. With that, the soothsayer's figure shimmered once more and disappeared. Be careful, Jian Wushuang. The piercing cry of the Gu King clamored hectically in Jian Wushuang's mind. Jian Wushuang felt his eyes contracting instantly as his foe made his move. For the first time in his life, he felt an alarming sensation tingling in his mind, warning him of grave danger the moment the soothsayer had disappeared. Without any hesitation, he kicked at the ground and leaped, trying his best to retreat to safety as fast as he could. Ha! You can't escape? The shrill and eerie giggle resounded once more. So fast was his speed, a blinding flash he turned into with the quickness that startled even Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun. A speed so fast that Jian Wushuang could never hope to match. The soothsayer was so close to catching up with Jian Wushuang when suddenly, a cold and frosty aura surged towards him. Ah! The brows of the old soothsayer rose, puzzled as he turned. The sight of Lung Rushuang, terrible and cold, in her rippling robes of flowing white filled his sight as the frosty coldness pricked at him incessantly. You dare lay a finger on him? Lung Rushuang's voice hummed icily through the air. With a wave of her hand, she summoned a white, icy wave of force and cast forth the energies she wielded, turning the air before her into ice instantly. Lung Rushuang thrust forth her palm, sending forth blasts of icy jets shooting at the soothsayer. Parlor tricks? The soothsayer sneered with disdain. He remained rooted to where he was, summoning merely a flicker of flames from his eyes. Swoosh, jet-black flames burst forth suddenly, burning him and lighting up the skies in a voracious inferno that feasted on the abundance of oxygen around him, dispelling all the coldness and iciness that Lung Rushuang had summoned earlier. I would never have shown you mercy if not for the fact that you are Emperor Lung's daughter. Begone now! With his ending words, the soothsayer roared, sending forth an blistering heatwave of black flames that turned everything around him into a sea of flames which sweltering heat forced even Lung Rushuang away. The soothsayer had not stayed his feet. In a split second later, he reappeared directly behind Jian Wushuang. Die! The soothsayer stretched out his finger, pointing at Jian Wushuang's fleeing back. No! Jian Wushuang felt fear and panic as he felt his face turning pale. Blasted! Jian Wushuang could hear the Gu King exclaiming loudly within him. What seemed to be a simple point with his finger had in fact sent a blast of force that shot through the air with terrifying speed and intensity, leaving a corkscrew of air currents in its wake. It caught up to Jian Wushuang in an instant, leaving him no opening to maneuver to safety as it struck him directly with a massive and frightening force. Bang! Jian Wushuang felt a faint hum from within him, followed by a huge explosion that blasted a huge and bloody hole on Jian Wushuang's torso. With a cavity as large as a bowl, the force had driven through Jian Wushuang's chest and exited from his back. Even so, Jian Wushuang could still feel residual energies of the force within him, churning angrily as the energies gnawed and gnashed at his life force. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang was losing control of his own movements, plunging straight down towards the ground. Beside him, Leng Rushuang watched with horror as Jian Wushuang fell. No, no! Leng Rushuang cried out loud, the strong and terrible cold aura emanating from her instantly soared at an unprecedented pace. With just the blink of an eye, she had achieved a newfound state of strength. I will kill you. Utter rage and malice hemmed Leng Rushuang's threatening words. White and icy mists began to surround and encompass around Leng Rushuang. Despite its seemingly harmless appearance, a mere strand of the fog held sufficient energies to annihilate an ordinary Dao master. The white foggy veil enclosed around Leng Rushuang, drastically raising her powers that now began to erupt. The sight of the falling Jian Wushuang was also witnessed by one other person aside from Leng Rushuang, Xue Lingtian, who was equally terrified watching his junior brother being mortally injured. Junior brother. Xue Lingtian's face expression twisted with rage and hate as he glared at the soothsayer with burning eyes. From his robes, he produced a token in his hand. Xue Lingtian crushed the token and immediately uttered a swift message. Teacher, junior brother is in grave danger. We need critical help. Chapter 940, The Calamitous Stomp. Chapter 940, The Calamitous Stomp. Far away at the ancient sect of the Firmament Territory, silence reigned with an despotic authority across the fastness of the stronghold of the sect. The disciples of the sect, including the palace masters of the Dao palaces, have all left to take part in a hunting tournament at the Heavenly Peak Valley. There was but one person who remained in the stronghold. Perched atop the peak of a mountain, Xian Yi was, clothed fully in white, gazing at the boundless skies above him with his hands held behind him. The message from Xue Lingtian, who was far away at the imperial city of the Tang Empire, came to him with the speed of light. Crack! A crack appeared in the air before him suddenly. The crack was a mere minuscule crevice in the fabric of space, yet it had adjoined with the surroundings of the imperial city of the Tang Empire despite being leagues and leagues away. So it comes, finally? Xian Yi murmured as his gaze slowly shifted to the crack. His gaze sharpened instantly. It was the stare of a predator regarding its prey. That is your cue, sect master. With a simple voice, Xian Yi uttered his instructions. His voice rang magically from all corners of the stronghold. There was a brief moment of stillness and peace within the stronghold as Xian Yi's voice faded. Then came a voice, deep and ancient, as if the voice of an entity of archaic origins from another dimension, rumbled slowly. You are certain that you require me to act? The rumbling voice asked. Yes. Xian Yi answered, his head dipping slightly. Very well. Remember the pact between us. The ancient voice groaned once more. Naturally. You will be able to go to wherever you wish after this battle. Xian Yi smiled and pointed at the crack in the air before him, saying, I have opened the portal for you. You may go. Very well. Leave the rest to me. The ancient voice echoed through the hallways of the stronghold. Just then, the floors of the stronghold began to shake violently. The violent tremor, coupled with the cacophony of collapsing structures and construction, clamored wildly as if the entire stronghold had been utterly tossed and overturned. Disaster! An apocalypse! In only a fraction of a second, the stronghold of the ancient sect had been reduced to mere rubbles and debris. It was fortunate that most of the disciples of the sect had left for the hunting tournament lest they would have been caught in the disastrous calamity of destructive which could have claimed a great many of their lives. Far away atop the mountaintops, Xian Yi surveyed the spectacle from his seat with indifference. Of the entire ancient sect or even the eternal world, Xian Yi was the only one who knew that there slumbered a gigantic behemoth beneath the stronghold of the sect. And after many long years and ages of rest, the monster had truly awakened. Bang! With a deafening crash, a huge, golden arm, stronger than even a mountain, stretched from the depths of the underground. The huge golden arm slammed into the ground and lifted the monster up with the crashing din of collapsing mountains and terrain. Finally, the huge monster got to his feet. Towering at more than 1,000 feet, the skin of the hulking giant glowed with a deep shade of gold. Destructive strength pulsed in the veins of his sturdy limbs as he stood motionless. Yet the mere sight of him was enough to invoke fear and panic. This huge giant studied the crack in the continuum of space before him with his stern and alert eyes. His arm reached forth, clutching tightly at the edges of the space rift. Summoning his strength, the giant ripped and tore at the crack. Swoosh! With his sheer might, the giant had enlarged the crack into a huge black hole that he could now step into. "We will meet again, Xian Yi." As he spoke, the giant stepped into the threshold of the pitch-black darkness and disappeared. A thin smile lined across Xian Yi's face, who had witnessed everything. At the front lines of the battlefield at the Imperial City. Despite scoring a hit on Jian Wushuang and pounded a hole on his chest, the soothsayer frowned with doubt. "Have I missed his life core?" the soothsayer asked himself with surprise. A practitioner or warrior of the eternal realm would perish and die if the life core of the person was destroyed. Then again, the soothsayer had failed to detect the existence of a life core when his blow had struck Jian Wushuang earlier. Could it be due to his methods of inverse cultivation? The soothsayer wondered aloud. Despite having heard of the methods of inverse cultivation before, the soothsayer knew only that most practitioners of the methods of inverse cultivation were strange and bizarre in their own right. He did not know anything more about the practice of inverse cultivations. He did not know that Jian Wushuang had achieved the eternal realm, the third step of the methods of inverse cultivation, the everlasting realm, where his life core was fully assimilated by his flesh, sinews, bones, and even the cells of his body. For this reason, the third step was called the everlasting realm. It was the stage where his life would never diminish as long as his physical body endured. "Damn you!" A sharp and furious cry rang deep into the ears of the soothsayer. Gripped by intense fury and rage, Leng Rushuang threw herself towards the soothsayer. Even the old soothsayer could not help but grimace at the stabbing cold as he braced himself and fought against his assailant. Many warriors yelled and bellowed at the sight of Jian Wushuang being severely injured. Some cheered jubilantly while some cried with concern and dismay. The warriors of Emperor Zhao's forces grew angered and distressed, whereas the warriors of the forces of Emperor Leng applauded with glee and delight. "Is Jian Wushuang dead at last?" Emperor Leng murmured, her gaze turning sharp suddenly with anticipation. The one person who had most welcomed the death of Jian Wushuang would be none other than Xia Meng himself. "Ah, dead now, are you? Jian Wushuang, are you finally dead?" Xia Meng screamed with joy as he burst into a maniacal laughter. "Good, really good. A country bumpkin such as you from a small and weak sect of a minuscule domain dare compete with me for a woman. What makes you think you are worthy of competing against me?" In his frenzied state of joy, Xia Meng's delirious roars boomed across the front lines loudly. However, suddenly, "Watch out, young master!" an angry voice called out to him. The loud cries restored a brief moment of clarity to Xia Meng, who recognized the voice. It was one of the warriors of his clan, the Xia clan. Yet, the voice had instead puzzled Xia Meng. Due to Leng Rushuang's sudden burst of strength, Xia Meng had earlier retreated to the edges of the battlefield. He was certain that there were no enemies around him and he was in no immediate danger. But why was his kin frantically warning him of danger? Xia Meng was dazed in thought when he noticed a huge shadow looming over him. Is the sky turning dark? Xia Meng lifted his head absent-mindedly. His eyes widened with shock as his head raised. A gigantic dark golden foot, with a monstrous immensity that dwarfed even a mountain, loomed over him. He had no inkling as to where the gigantic foot had came from, but the mere sight of its enormity left him speechless and frozen with panic. For reasons unknown, the gigantic, golden foot seemed to be falling right on him. No! Xia Meng burst into the most shrilling howl he had made in his life, before he was instantly crushed by the huge foot a split second later. Bang! A flash of thunderbolt thundered imperiously. The ground of the whole imperial city shook violently. The huge, dark golden foot fell upon Xia Meng, smashing into him and reduced him into no more but a mass of flesh, viscera and blood. Chapter 941, Master of the Ancient Sect. Chapter 941, Master of the Ancient Sect. A gigantic foot, dark gold in color, fell on Xia Meng and crushed him to death. Young Master Meng. Son. Xia Tao, who was fighting furiously against the Lord of Circus Island, with numerous elites from the Xia clan, witnessed the whole tragedy. Fury took them immediately. In the happened next, however, left the entire crowd stunned. A massive and startlingly wide black hole emerged in the sky near the edges of the battlefield like a huge portal wide open. It was from this black hole that the gigantic golden foot had emerged, yet that was merely the precursor of what was to come. From the darkness of the vortex, the gigantic foot lowered and revealed the complete figure of an towering giant, blushing dark golden, at a height of over 1,000 feet that lorded over the entire expanse of the battlefield. With a girth extremely wide and huge, the behemoth's mere presence sent fear and awe into everyone witnessing its advent. His eyes shone with a dark golden glimmer, where none could miss the unmistakable air of conceit and contempt. His gigantic form stood firmly, proud and erect like a pillar that held up the strata of the skies, which even the continuum of time and space were faintly warped by his sheer presence alone. Despite his majestic indifference, the most unmistakable were the several dark golden four-pointed star patterns etched on his forehead, between his eyebrows. The Gu King, upon recognizing the presence of the hulking figure, felt a quiver to his heart and howled sternly, "It's an ancient god of imperial lineage." That was true. The giant's dark golden physique and the four-pointed star patterns between his eyebrows were clear signs of an ancient god of imperial lineage. Most copper-armored, silver-armored, and even gold-armored ancient gods of the Ancient God clan have their iconic four-pointed star patterns, which symbolize their strength and powers, etched upon their chests. Only a pure-blooded ancient god of imperial lineage would have these symbolic patterns etched between their eyebrows. Moreover, this colossal ancient god has a whole of 7 four-pointed star patterns between his eyebrows. A total of 7 four-pointed stars, which would mean that he was a 7-star ancient god of imperial lineage. He was just one class below King Luozhen, the former master of the Gu King, who has 8 stars. I am Gu Tong, the master of the ancient sect. A deep, thick voice came out of the mouth of the ancient god, reverberating loudly, sending a tremor through the entire imperial palace. Everyone at the front lines, including the numerous Dao masters at the battlefield, were stunned at the appearance of Gu Tong. Yet their amazement was hardly surprising, for Gu Tong's huge body was unimaginably massive. With a height of over 1,000 feet, Gu Tong dominated even the large hilly mountains, and his mere presence humbled all that witnessed him appear. The Ancient God clan? And yet a 7-star ancient god of imperial lineage? The old soothsayer frowned quietly with dreading apprehension. His position as the national master of the Tang Kingdom of the Eastern Lands would hardly amount to anything before an entity of such indomitable strength and greatness. The tale of the renowned Ancient God clan was hardly unheard of to him. An ordinary 3-star ancient god alone would have the strength equivalent to that of a normal Dao master. 4-star ancient gods would be equal to extremely powerful, if not one of the best, Dao masters. Those beyond the class of 4 stars would wield even greater and unfathomable powers. Gu Tong, however, was an ancient god of 7 stars, one who also bore the bloodline of imperial lineage. My lord, A gentle call had sounded abruptly. It was, naturally, Shueling Tian who had spoken. You are a disciple of Xian Yi. My avatar had met you before years ago. Gu Tong recognized him as he spoke slowly. Xian Yi has bade me to come to his disciple's aid. Who shall I strike down? Gu Tong's dark golden eyes surveyed his surroundings. It is him, master. Shueling Tian's finger pointed straight at the soothsayer. This made the old soothsayer felt a shudder as his face darkened immediately. You. Malice flickered instantly in his eyes as Gu Tong's gaze transfixed upon the soothsayer. Die! With a huge battle cry, Gu Tong struck forth mercilessly. Surrounded by the many Dao masters and other warriors outside the imperial palace, Gu Tong threw a strong blow at his quarry. What seemed to be any ordinary punch tore apart the fabric of space, creating a huge black hole that was hemmed with crackling thunderclaps snapping angrily. The rolling mass of energy thundered furiously, reaching before the soothsayer in the blink of an eye. Rumble! The force of the blow ripped at the winds, the billowing currents howling savagely. No one watching the spectacle was without fear and panic. Their sights could hardly be removed from the impending blow heading straight for its target. To rest of the warriors at the front lines, this was hardly a mere blow from a punch, but a destructive supernova threatening to explode heading swooping down on its prey. The huge mass of energies sped straight with blinding speed. It was amazing that with Gu Tong's huge girth, he could move with such quickness and agility. Watching as the huge supernova threatening to smash face-first into him, the soothsayer could hardly suppress his fearfulness no more. He raised his old and gnarly palm, channeling energies that accumulated upon his opened palms in the form of black, eerie, swirling tendrils of fumes. His palm grew larger and larger in an instant. Never had he employed his full strength even when he was fighting against Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, or Leng Rushuang. But now, with his own life at stake against one so powerful as a seven-star ancient god, the old soothsayer would hardly dare keep any more reservations. The magic cloud palm. With a low growl, the soothsayer thrusted his palm forth, sending tendrils of jet-black fumes churning around him with a stench of foul-smelling odor. With steeled resolve, he unleashed the greatest destructive force he could muster. Boom! The two bodies of energies smashed directly into each other, emitting a fierce, blood-curdling roar, followed by terrifying waves of surging air. Buffeted by the angry, rolling winds, the resultant force of the meeting blows ruptured whatever strength left of the fabric of space, sending huge sickening groans of something being ripped to shreds and pieces. The shockwaves rippled from the center of their clash swept across the entire breadth of the huge battlefield, the front lines of the skirmish taking place at the imperial city. The Dao masters watching from the outskirts shuddered when the waves of tremor hit them, their blood swirled and simmered uncontrollably. Some collapsed, screaming in agony and pain, whereas some felt the taste of blood in their mouth from the internal damage incurred by the blast. The unforgiving blasts of air tore into what remained of the imperial city, pummeling the still-standing structures, trees and flora into rubbles and ruins that nothing was left thereafter. With one single blow, the remains of the imperial city, the shadows of its former glory, had been reduced into nothing but a mere memory. Craters and filth littered across the entire expanse of the imperial city, with no traces of flora and vegetation nor any remnants of buildings and structures visible. Just where the two destructive mights clash. The old soothsayer suddenly spat a mouthful of blood, warm and fresh. His face turned pale and frail from the ordeal. He had suffered a huge blow that had threw him off his feet. Standing earlier at the center of the battlefield of the imperial city, he had been thrown so far that he smashed into a mountain outside of the imperial city, reducing the mountain into no more than a pile of debris and boulders. Silence rose over the entire surroundings like an apparition. At its very center stood the dark golden form of Gu Tong, who then cast his gaze afar into the outskirts of the imperial city, his dark golden eyes looking intently at the fallen piles of rubbles. From the pile of rubbles a figure leaped into the air. Whoosh! The soothsayer had risen and has returned. Chapter 942, Blood-Killing Plate Armor. Chapter 942, Blood-Killing Plate Armor. The soothsayer stopped midair after bursting out of the mountain waste. He was a complete mess. His face was pale and there was still blood on the corners of his mouth. However, he was not all flustered and his eyes appeared radiant. Ha! Suddenly he burst out laughing like a madman. Gutong, no, I should call you King Gutong since you're an ancient god of imperial kinsmen, the soothsayer said. To be honest, I was scared when I saw a 7-star imperial god like you. Even at the peak of my strength, I'm no match for you. But obviously you're not fully recovered or you wouldn't have appeared in this world. I think you currently only have 10% of your usual strength and your battle capability is only at the 5-star level. Otherwise, I wouldn't have survived your attack earlier. The soothsayer was well aware of the terrible power of the 7-star imperial god. It would take a 7-star imperial god at its peak a measly finger to kill him. However, Gutong was evidently far from it. I can easily kill you with only 10% of my strength, Gutong retorted in a cold but majestic voice. Really? The soothsayer replied coolly with a smile. He then waved his hand in the air. Buzz! A stream of black air current burst out of the depths of the palace that had been razed to the ground. It was accompanied by a stench that rose from the ground and gradually grew stronger. Then, out of the blue, a bloody flowing light rose from the bottom of the palace and flew toward the soothsayer. Soon, this bloody flowing light was in the soothsayer's hands. It appeared to be a scarlet armor. The size of the armor was similar to the Blood Eagle armor that Jian Wushuang once obtained, but its aura was much more powerful and contained an intense killing intent that would scare even a Dao master. Blood-killing armor. Gutong stared at the scarlet armor in surprise. He could recognize the scarlet armor. It was a special treasure that was valuable and powerful beyond measure. You're a 7-star imperial god indeed. You really know a lot. But this isn't the blood-killing armor. It's actually called the blood-killing plate armor. Still wearing a cold smile, the soothsayer put on the scarlet armor. His aura immediately skyrocketed with a potent killing intent. I've been pouring a copious amount of luck into it day and night all these years and it's now fully repaired. The soothsayer gave Gutong a chilly look. King Gutong, our previous collision doesn't count. Let's find out who's the winner now. Gutong said nothing but his expression changed and there was a thunderbolt flashing inside his dark golden pupils. With a sudden expansion of his body, he then slammed into the soothsayer. The soothsayer cackled. With magic clouds bursting out of his slender body, he began growing at an alarming rate until he was hundreds of feet tall. While he was not as large as Gutong, they were quite a match. Come on. The soothsayer was excited. The two of them collided in the next moment. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying explosions echoed in the sky. The soothsayer had been a lot weaker than Gutong in their earlier collision and had been completely crushed. Now equipped with the blood-killing plate armor, he was almost evenly matched with Gutong. In fact, he was even in the position to put up an aggressive fight. Their fierce battle caused powerful aftermath that caused the nearby Dao masters and experts to retreat further. Even Emperor Leng, Emperor Shao, and Emperor Yun, who had just got out of the pit, had to back away. Not even the three of them had the room to intervene in a battle of such a magnitude. Moreover, they had their own opponents to worry about. Bitch, hurry up and surrender. Despite his pale face, Emperor Shao managed to produce an earth-shattering bellow. Damn it! Emperor Leng wore a somber expression as she looked around her. The fact that her camp had been on the losing side forced her to get the national master's help. However, they ended up having to fend for themselves anyway after the terrifying ancient god of the imperial kinsmen made a sudden appearance and kept the national master busy. Both Emperor Shao and Emperor Yun were now ready to fight again. On the other side of the battlefield, Xueling Tian had already defeated and wounded Xia Yu. This was incredibly bad news for her. Xia Tao. Emperor Leng's cold voice drifted to where Xia Tao, the master of Xia clan, was fighting hard with Lord of Circes Island. Xia Tao immediately turned to look at her in alarm. The National Master and I've done our best in the battle today, but if you're holding back and waiting to take advantage of us, then our previous agreement will be null. We'll leave and hand Tang of the East over to Shao. There was a hint of decisiveness in her voice. She paused before continuing, Humph. The Xia clan has survived in Tang of the East since ancient times. You must have many more unfathomable resources than these Dao masters you dispatched. You have the immortal army, don't you? Don't you think it's the time to use it? Her words stunned Xia Tao. The Xia clan had held immense power in Tang of the East for many years. Even in the kingdom's most prosperous time, the four emperors had to show some respect to the clan. Naturally, the clan would possess more resources than what they demonstrated in the battle today. They indeed possessed many trump card and skills, and the best one among them was the immortal army. However, this was a secret known only to a few Xia clansmen. How did Emperor Leng find out about it? Though still confused, Xia Tao was also desperate to overturn the current situation and thus, immediately agreed. Since Emperor Leng has personally made the request, then the Xia clan will stop hiding it. March, the Immortal Army. Chapter 943, Immortal Army. Chapter 943, Immortal Army. Boom! A wormhole appeared in the middle of the battlefield and out walked many black-robed people. 100 of such men gathered behind Xia Tao. Each of them emanated a powerful aura and a fierce killing intent. They were all Dao masters. Every single one of them was a Dao master. To this, everyone on the battlefield was shocked. There was 100 Dao masters in the Xia clan. These people resemble Dao masters, but their aura is a bit strange, Lord of Circes Island muttered. The others noticed it as well. These people emanated a strange aura that typically came from a dying warrior. However, the life of an expert in the eternal realm of the eternal world was eternal. Unless killed, a Dao master could live forever. However, the aura of these people was strong and deadly. Something wasn't right. This is the Xia clan's immortal army? There are as many as 100 people? Emperor Leng looked at the group of men in shock. She knew there was an immortal army in the clan and she was also familiar with their origins. In the past, the clan obtained an incomparably cruel secret skill by chance. The secret skill allowed an expert at the top of Eternal Realm to open up a Dao in a short time and become a Dao master. However, the cost was steep. They would be stagnant at rank 1 after becoming Dao masters through the skill. It was the most common and even the weakest type of Dao masters. Their life expectancy would also be greatly limited. Those who cultivated this secret skill could live for only 100,000 years. There was no cure for their limited lifespan. The Xia clan had been cultivating the immortal army ever since they discovered the skill. When a member of the army died, there would be a replacement immediately. After so many years, they had paid an unimaginable price to maintain the existence of their army. There had been countless people in the top level of the Eternal Realm alone who had sacrificed their lives for this. The Immortal Army is finally coming to play after we spend so many years building the army at a great cost. Xia Tao sneered. Then, a majestic and sturdy elderly man walked out the group of 100 black-robed figures and stood next to him. Is that Xia Ming? Xia Ming, the previous master of the Xia clan. Didn't the old dog die 1,000,000 years ago? How can he be alive now? Exclamations rose in the crowd when the elderly man appeared. The previous master of the Xia clan had been even more powerful than Xia Tao, perhaps even stronger than Emperor Shao and Emperor Leng. How could he still be alive? The Xia clan indeed had its resources. Emperor Leng smirked. The Xia clan's trump card would have horrified her were she not in the same camp as them. Instead, it simply overjoyed her to have such formidable reinforcements. Let's get started. Xia Tao looked at the strong old man next to him. Xia Ming gave a small nod before waving his hand. March on, the Immortal Army. Boom! The 100 Dao masters from the Immortal Army charged into the battlefield. Oh no! We're in trouble. Emperor Shao, Emperor Yun, and the experts on the other camp were all shocked. Their side had the upper hand before the immortal army came into the battle. Now, their opponents were much stronger and victory looked likely for them. Hurry up and think of a way to block them. These Tao Masters are just the most common and weakest of their ranks. Be careful and you'll still get a chance to kill them. Emperor Xiao continued to bellow in encouragement. No matter how he called out, it was a fact that their camp was greatly outnumbered now that the 100 Tao Masters of the immortal army had come into play. Emperor Zhao's camp was almost instantaneously crushed, with his Tao Masters falling one after another. One of the 10 war gods was already dead before the immortal army showed up, and now 3 more were killed. Even Di Jing had sustained severe injuries. Emperor Xiao, we can't hold on anymore. Bai Minghao, master of the Baiming clan, shouted. Emperor Zhao's face darkened. Do we have to run away like the last time? He clasped his hands, his heart twisting with agony. I don't want it. He didn't want to run away. On the other side, Jian Wushuang, Leng Rushuang paid no mind to the changes in the battlefield. She immediately ran to the sinkhole below after Gu Tong, the 7-star imperial god, appeared and stopped the soothsayer. She looked anxious. After all, she had seen with her own eyes how the soothsayer pierced through Jian Wushuang's chest with his sword. She finally found Jian Wushuang at the bottom of the sinkhole. He lied quietly on the ground, the bowl-sized cavity on his chest healing at an alarming rate. By the time she reached her, his wound had mostly healed. Jian Wushuang smiled at her and said, "Don't worry. I'm fine." She heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that he was still alive. She didn't know that Jian Wushuang had made a breakthrough and reached the 3rd step in defiance of the natural order. Even if he wanted to die, the new realm would keep him alive forever. The soothsayer had pierced through his chest and shattered his heart, but the injuries would not kill him. Moreover, he had Gu King, the plenilune centipede, in his body. Gu King had a powerful healing ability that rapidly mended his injuries. He was now almost fully recovered. The situation is very bad. Go and help Emperor Xiao. You don't have to worry about me, I'll recover in no time, Jian Wushuang said solemnly. Leng Rushuang looked at his nearly healed chest and made up her mind. She immediately left for the battlefield. He lied in the sinkhole, while his consciousness communicated with Gu King. Gu King, I remember you once said that in time of crisis, I can forcefully absorb King Luo Zhen's blood essence for a chance to live, Jian Wushuang said. What do you want to do? Gu King became obviously tense. You tell me. Jian Wushuang smiled. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.